The Queen James Bible.
Excuse me while I laugh over here. Okay, so I've got no script. I just wanted to ad-lib this because I am tired of cults.
My Quran.
Awesome.
You have the Quran here? Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, multiple. I've got
Quran?
so many Qurans.
It's recording. I didn't even... Okay, cool. What should we talk about first? There's so much potential.
Well, which cult do we want to pick from? Rabbinical Judaism, Islam, Millerite movement, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses.
So, a cult
I agree.
is...
It's perversion.
A cult
Yeah.
is a perversion of the gospel, maintaining certain biblical themes.
Yes, just
I would disagree on one account, is that not every cult is biblically themed. I would say it's perversion of a... I would include the Bible because more often than not, but it would also specify the control tactic that's used in cults.
yeah. So the problem is there's actually two definitions of cults, and we're playing with both of them here. There's the Christian biblical definition of a cult is perversion of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
The secular definition of cult is how people use it colloquially, and if you go to any dictionary, the definition of a cult is going to be using the Beit model. The Beit model is a developed model, behavioral. I actually don't remember all of them. But anyway, point being is it's level of control you have over people, level of uniformity, that sort of thing. Just think Borg with Star Trek, that definition. And so I agree that actually should be present in a cult. You need high conformity if you're going to keep your cult alive. But biblically, it's just perversion of Christianity.
So we can have both, though.
Yeah.
It's a perversion of Christianity
with high control.
With high control.
Yes.
Okay.
Not just high control, but also certain control tactics that cults often
Yes,
use.
and so high control, we have to determine how do they get high control?
Yeah.
How do they achieve that? And that's the Beit model, is you have certain behavioral things, you have certain... anyway, yeah.
So, Keegan, I think
Yeah.
I think we should start with Judaism. So, like, give us...
I just want to get
Evil.
canceled really bad.
Next! No.
Yeah. Done.
So,
Close case.
what makes them a cult? Like, how...
Yeah.
What makes Judaism a cult?
Gnosticism.
Okay, Gnosticism.
And then their practices. Actual observant Judaism, specifically the Chabad. They'll kidnap members who try to leave. They literally dug tunnels under New York City to fulfill a prophecy from Rabbi Schneerson just recently. Got arrested for that. The way they seclude themselves from society and like make their own ghettos, basically. So you can go to communities in New York City that are just completely this group of Judaism. They all follow their rabbis as the sole interpreters who can be their connection to God, and they call them the righteous ones. The Old Testament talks about how there are righteous ones, and they say that's our rabbis. Our rabbis have attained righteousness on earth, and because they no longer have personal sin, their barrier before God is torn, kind of like the curtain's torn, but without Jesus. So they can communicate divine truth down to us, and we have to follow them. And so then it comes into arguments of which rabbi is better, right? And so they don't actually believe all their different... one sect is going to be like, our rabbi is a righteous one, but yours isn't. And so they'll argue over that. That's just classic cult thing. In addition, their seclusion, again, they sequester themselves from society, and they don't even allow their members access to modern technology. I've heard a lot of them generally actually secretly have an iPhone, but they're not supposed to. They have flip phones, right? They're supposed to be disconnected from the world because physical is evil, that sort of thing. They're supposed to be kept in isolation, knowledge-wise, intellectually, culturally, all of that. They even go so far as to literally wear the exact same outfit like Men in Black. Literally just the same exact outfit. You can't come out. Even Mormons don't always do that. They have their special missionary attire, but they don't wear their missionary attire 24/7. It's not like they open up their closet and it's just white shirt, white shirt, white shirt, white shirt, white shirt.
They do it secretly underneath their clothes.
You've got a good point. So it's worse with more with like Chabad, where they do it externally. Oh, that is their clothes.
Mm-hmm. How do they distort the gospel?
They don't accept Jesus.
Well, that is it. They would say that people, again, they adopt this is why people blame Judaism for being the ideology behind the Enlightenment, is because during the Middle Ages, is when rabbinical Judaism really got formalized with Maimonides, or who they affectionately call a Rambam. as one does, I guess. But anyway.
A ram band.
Yeah.
Sounds like a rap lyric, ram band.
Totally.
Ram, damn, call me.
So he makes a commentary on the entire Old Testament and the entire Talmud, Mishnah, everything, which is why he's the authoritative guy for it, because he actually has an opinion on every single line and every single verse. So he's a great reference because there's just so much literature.
A feat. That's crazy.
I know. He was actually a brilliant guy. He was absolutely brilliant. He was just brilliantly deceived. And so he specifically developed a criterion for who the Messiah would be as a reaction to Christianity to exclude Jesus as being God, and developed criterion that just, anyway, it's really bad. And along with that, which this part had been going on for a while, is they recognized with the destruction of the temple that they needed a spiritual connection. After Jesus comes, even Josephus writes that the sacrifices of the temple were no longer being accepted, which is really interesting. When the temples, they recognize that the God's presence is no longer there. He's not even accepting sacrifices, nothing. It's useless. The temple gets destroyed, their last hope is gone. They're shedding members like crazy. The Pharisees, who become the Chabad. The Chabad will proudly tell you they are the descendants of the Pharisees. Sometimes actual physical descendants are like Caiaphas. Like, it's crazy. It's sometimes just spiritual descendants, right? Like, they will be like, the Pharisees, those are our homeboys. They're awesome. These are the guys we will proudly say are ours, and we would kill Christ again.
We'll dap them up, and not on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
As long as they're proud to say it on Judgment Day, too.
Yes, exactly. And so they will, they recognize we need to, it's just rules, it's stuffy, we can't connect to God, we're shedding members, because, again, we say God's there and he loves us, but we can't even tell people how to talk to God. People are leaving us for obvious reasons. We've got to connect to something spiritual. They do. Their rabbis keep getting demon-possessed as a result. So their conclusion is not that we've reached the wrong thing. Their conclusion is our rabbis aren't spiritually mature enough yet and are falling prey to evil spirits. So they restrict a knowledge of what becomes Kabbalah, which is just Jewish Gnosticism. And they develop this, and then you get Maimonides, which systematizes all their doctrine. And so practically they follow Maimonides. All of that makes them a cult that worships demonic spirits, specifically communes with them, and just has all the hallmarks socially of a cult. They believe people are basically good. They would literally believe we have an inner spark of the divine, Gnosticism. Each day of creation is God's creating one new ring of reality, and we're on the sixth ring. What sin is it was when our ring of existence came out of alignment with the other six, and we need to do Tukum Alam, which are good deeds, which we can do because we're basically good. We can earn our way without the cross to get our ring back into alignment with the other six. And when we do, we will reach a new astral plane of existence, essentially. It is just the same lie. Yes, it is just Gnosticism. I've got a lot of literature on it from them. I'm not just saying this from my perspective. I should probably go get their literature. I can just read this from their handouts. They're decently open about most of this, except the restricted knowledge. And so that makes them a cult. We can attain divinity without Jesus. In fact, the rabbis, according to their books, won a debate against God. Mm-hmm. They're smarter than God. They can become God. They can fix the world without God. And it's a secretive knowledge. You have to be qualified to join us, and we will literally rule your lives. You can't have technology. You have to dress all the same in uniform. You have to seclude yourself from all of society. You have to do all of this. A lot of the original Enlightenment thinkers were Jewish because it just meshes so well. The Enlightenment was Gnostic. Judaism was the prevailing vehicle for Gnosticism through the Middle Ages to survive. And then it explodes with the Enlightenment. A lot of the Enlightenment thinkers had a Jewish background, or they embraced aspects of Judaism and became way more friendly to it after they effectively adopted Gnostic reasoning. Mm-hmm. And that's why people will point to this idea that a lot of ideas in Judaism have led to the death of the West. People will then make the wrong conclusion and say, therefore, kill the Jews, like Hitler did. Hitler rightly recognized that a lot of Jewish influences lead to moral decay. But Paul also says that. He says that partial hardening on them, I wouldn't expect pagans to act anything other than pagan.
Oh yeah, I want to add something to that, actually.
Yeah.
So, not add, but along what you just said, mm-hmm. There is what many Christians probably think, mm-hmm. and what Muslims will tell you and tell you is, let's go down the line. It goes Islam, then before that was Christianity, before that was Judaism.
No.
How would you, along the lines of like partial hardening and things like that, What would you say to the Christian who thinks Judaism came before Christianity, therefore it could have some authority of being more correct?
Hebrews 11, I think, covers the hall of faith. Abraham and all the patriarchs are justified by their faith. Judaism, as a religion, went under a metamorphosis by the Pharisees in reaction to Jesus and became a completely different beast. They are not justified according to the Hebrews hall of faith, right? Now you need to accept Jesus. That's the whole point of the chapter. And so the type of faith that Abraham and the patriarchs had was in a coming Messiah. That's how they're justified, by their faith. Judaism, as it exists today, puts their faith in their own inner goodness and divine spark. That makes it a completely different religion, which is why I often call it Rabbinic Judaism, or Talmudic Judaism is another good name. It's like Mormons, right? They follow the Book of Mormon. And so I would say that it's like saying the Mormons used to be Christian. Sort of true, sort of not. Completely different beast. A lot of the first converts to Mormonism were people who were from Christian churches. But I would argue they weren't actually Christians. There was no reason to really accept Mormonism for them.
So if you were to put a name to the faith of our fathers,
it'd be Christianity.
Even in the Old Testament, you'd call that Christianity?
Yep. Absolutely. Or belief in a Messiah.
I was going to say, I acknowledge your reasoning behind that. My thought is, with Christianity, that came from the derogatory term of those who follow Christ.
Yeah. Oh, wait, let's do Messianic Judaism. That can work. Messianic Judaism.
You would accept that?
I could. Because that's saying it's a belief for ethnically Jewish people centered around the Messiah.
Messianic Zionism, maybe?
So Zionism is the belief that Israel has a divine right to exist.
Okay, so Messianic Judaism.
Probably.
So now I think it's important to create a distinction between that, what you just said, and modern Messianic Judaism.
Is there modern Messianic Judaism? What do you mean by this?
So I would say like what Paul refers to as the Galatians, right? The Galatian church.
Oh, the Judaizers?
So yes. Modern Messianic Judaism is the idea that I have Jesus, but I'm going to stick strictly to the 613 laws.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. That's
I want to create a distinction because we can call Old Testament Messianic Judaism because it was about the Jews and they were looking forward to their Messiah.
Yeah.
But that's different than nowadays Messianic Judaism.
And today they would call themselves Messianic believers in Yeshua. They wouldn't even say the term Judaism generally, but they just call themselves Messianic. Maybe the Messianic Jews, right? But there's a distinction, right? Because one accepts Jesus as God. The other hoped in a future Messiah, and they might not have had all the details, but they're saved by their faith.
So you're making a distinction between Messianic Judaism and Messianic Jews. You're saying that's the distinction. The name implies the difference.
Yes, because Judaism, yes, probably, yeah. And I've never thought through what I would call Christians before Christ. And so I could shift on my name if there's a better name. I'm thinking Messianic Judaism just because it's a distinction between Rabbinic Judaism, but it still maintains the term Judaism.
So the only reason I was bringing that second part up is because there are people who might watch this and think, oh, so I should be Messianic Jew.
No.
And it's like, well, hold on. The small distinction between Judaism and Jew is very different.
Yes.
Right? It's very important.
Yep.
Messianic Jews try to have both.
Yeah. And so the problem is, technically, as just a mere term, sure, if you are ethnically Jewish and you believe in the Messiah, you could be Messianic Jew. However, it is also a movement, which is the problem. As a movement that has claimed this name, the movement is not biblical. The movement says, and I've heard this from people that say we are Messianic Jews. They'll say we are not Christians. We follow Yeshua. That's the problem. Jesus says, those who will deny me before men, I'll deny before my Father in heaven. Those who deny my words, I'll deny before my Father in heaven. Reported in more than one gospel, right? And so they deny terminology from the gospel. So there's a huge movement within that group to deny Paul, because Paul really critiqued the Judaizers, and really the Messianic Jews are modern day Judaizers. They'll try to mesh Rabbinic Judaism with Christianity because they don't want to be disowned by their friends and family, which I completely get. That's understandable. Islam have the same problem where they've got a problem with Christians still calling themselves Muslim. I get it. But if you are a Christian, you should not go around calling yourself a Muslim just because your family is. I get it. That's hard, and it's a hard bullet to bite. But Christ says we are required to sacrifice. And so, greater love has no man than this, that he lay his life down for a friend.
And furthermore,
right?
if anyone loves his father or mother family more than he loves Jesus, the Bible says, then he is not.
So
and so what Messianic Jews do today is they will they'll take elements of rabbinic Judaism and still live according to them, even though they know they don't have to. But they'll inwardly follow Jesus. And so it's like if a Christian said, I will pray Muslim prayers 5 times a day. I'll set up my own congregation and call it a mosque.
I'll fast during Ramadan,
all of that. But I'll still worship Jesus. Mm-hmm. Okay, you might, I could, depending on how you interpret that, because some of the Messianic Jews will go so far as to say you need to do these things. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, now you're just mixing 2 religions and adding to the gospel.
You're an inconsistent mess.
But if you just say, I do it for these reasons, you're probably still saved, right? Mm-hmm. You can have messy theology and still be saved, but it doesn't mean you should stay in your messy theology.
It's similar to, not Roman Catholics, but Catholics. Because they don't accept the current pope.
I met Catholics that one of the only differences is they don't believe the current pope is actually the pope.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
they're crazy, by the way. I saw 2 groups of Catholics get into a fist fight on outreach in California.
Honestly,
she said, Pope Francis for president.
Bro, honestly though, I think those people are just struggling with their traditions and should just become Orthodox.
I, as a Westerner, could not be Orthodox for the simple fact that I like systems.
Yes.
And logic.
But
I like this thing called logic.
Thank you. But no, okay. I agree that they should become Protestant because I believe that's correct. But if
I want Mari Emmanuel right now.
I need Bob. Where's Bob at?
Give me Prophet Bob.
Bob. But no, seriously, it's that they reject the idea that the current pope is the real pope. Yeah. So do the Orthodox. They want to keep their traditions. So do the Orthodox. So I think they should be Protestant because I don't think the Pope has any power at all, and neither does the Orthodox Pope.
I just don't think they want to get rebaptized because Orthodox will make them do that.
Yeah,
I respect Orthodox for that.
But no,
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, the more killing and weird, strict stuff you have in your cult, the more I respect you because you really committed. You're evil, but you really committed to the bit.
So Keegan, I think you'll be the best to speak to this. Why do we have Seventh-day Adventist stuff over here?
Because they're a hot mess.
They're a hot mess.
Hey, speaking of the Catholics,
how did they distort the gospel, and what makes them fall into the line of a cult?
They come out of the Millerite movement, the same movement that birthed the Jehovah's Witnesses. They followed a guy named Miller who predicted Jesus' second coming, but then when it failed, he says, well, he actually came spiritually, which read Matthew 24.
Oh my,
doesn't work.
Exactly.
But
oh my goodness.
but he adds to the gospel, and so. Traditional Seventh-day Adventism followed a teenage female prophetess, which already so many red flags right there. Self-proclaimed teenage female prophetess named Ellen G. White. Her husband denied the Trinity. She refused to affirm the Trinity, really. She played loose with it. She said that she had all these prophecies from God. They literally have something called the health gospel. And that influences their veganism. They'll say that traditional Seventh-day Adventism would say that worshiping on Sunday is the mark of the beast and therefore the unforgivable sin. If you're not vegan, again, you are giving into this system of things, which is just, again, same language as Jehovah's Witnesses because they come from the same group. And so they're adding requirements to the gospel. I don't have a problem if you've got a personal conviction to worship on Saturday.
Yeah, but eschatology.
So totally fine if you have a personal conviction to worship on Saturday. Totally fine. But if you then say, if you worship on another day, you are going to hell. You've now added effectively a requirement to salvation. And that's the problem. And so that's why I say they're a cult. They are very cultish, denied the Trinity, denied Jesus' divinity, if I remember correctly. Said all these bad things added to the gospel. However, she failed to appoint a successor. And so now there are 2 branches in their movement, which is why I say they're a hot mess. There's the traditionalists, which believe all that stuff. And there's more of the kind of compatibilists. They try to make her teachings compatible with the gospel. But they would say they're sola scriptura. They'd say the scripture's up here. Ellen G. White could be wrong, and if she's wrong, we will reject those words from her and accept the Bible. They accept the Trinity. They accept all these things. They'd say you should worship on Saturdays, but it's not a salvific issue. They accept some weird doctrines, but I think they are saved. They accept the same gospel, all this. They personally decide to be vegan, which again, bad idea. Paul says you're weak if you do. That's an out-of-context Bible verse, but he does say that.
That's an out-of-context Bible verse. Hey, it's okay to quote out of context if you acknowledge it's out of context.
Exactly. It makes it all better.
You're already starting a new cult. That's amazing.
And so the compatibilist wing, because no strict hierarchy to keep their members in line was ever established, their members can just go whatever way they wish. And some of them have reverted back to basically Christianity. And I think eventually they'll just become straight up, Protestants. In fact, most of these people will say they're Protestant. It's how far they've gone.
Well, it's important to take note with really any of these cults. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to go with the source text and this is what they should believe.
Yeah.
But whenever approaching anybody, always ask.
Yes.
Because
you don't know.
You have Mormons who know virtually nothing about what they believe.
Yeah.
Who I believe have a higher chance of being saved. Not accidentally, but just by not knowing what they believe.
Yeah.
I would not jump to say that most Mormons are saved.
No, never.
Muslims, especially Western Muslims, do not really understand the Quran.
Definitely not saved, though, because they reject Jesus. And
Definitely not saved. Definitely not saved. I will give the Book of Mormon credit. In its first few pages, you get the Trinity.
Yeah.
Even though they deny the Trinity and probably the rest of it, first few pages, the testimony of the 8 witnesses, I believe, ends with the Trinity. Mm-hmm. So, great for that.
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses, I forgot what I was going to say about that. Never mind. Continue, as you were saying. Yeah, that's what it was. Jehovah's Witnesses actually are one of the only cults that pretty much everybody you encounter knows what they believe.
Yes. I respect them for it.
Yeah, they are well studied in their heresies.
Incredibly respect someone who at least knows what they believe. And we have the same thing with Christians, right? Is all Christians should believe exactly what the Bible says, but you can't assume that when someone walks up to you and says, I'm a Christian. Most people who say that aren't. Most of them still think that they're a good enough person to go to heaven, and that's why they'll get there. And honestly, even those who are saved don't actually always believe what the book says. Most Western Christians, especially post-sexual revolution, completely ignore the chapter on head coverings. They should believe it. They don't, right? Same thing with women voting, although that one I give more credit for because it's not like you have one chapter where Paul's like, women shall not vote. Mm-hmm. But he does have that for head coverings. And so we've got these things where like actual Christians evidently should believe things in the Bible, but they just don't. Mm-hmm. And so there are people who probably really are Seventh-day Adventists who are aware of some of that troublesome stuff and just don't believe it. And so we should always approach the person, find out, what do you believe?
Yeah,
hold their feet to the fire of their book. Yeah. Because as James White has said, right, you need to convert a Mormon into Mormonism to get him out of it. Mm-hmm. The point being, he needs to recognize he's got a problem and it contradicts with the gospel. So you put him at a crossroads. He recognizes, okay, I've got a problem. I need to look to Jesus, and then hopefully becomes a Christian.
What I really respect about Muslims is the fact that if you question a Muslim on what they believe, I have almost every single time heard them say, if I'm wrong, do not look down on Islam because I'm fallible. I am imperfect.
Amazing.
Go to the source.
Yep.
Excellent. Your source is horrible, but
I'm still looking down on Islam because I've read the source.
With Christians, right? You have a lot of people who leave Christianity because of the Christians.
Yes.
It's like, whoop-de-doo. God's bride is unfaithful. That's kind of been the problem.
A church didn't veil. I'm so sorry. Don't leave because of that, please.
Yeah, it's like, this Christian was mean to me. Yeah.
And we installed a fog machine and pastor has skinny jeans. 1, leave that church. But join another church. Don't leave the faith.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like always go to the source. Like exactly what you said, Keegan. When you're talking to somebody in any cult, go to the source.
Yep.
Bring them to the source.
Yep.
And specifically ask exactly what they believe, because I remember you mentioned that the Seventh-day Adventists believe that it's the unforgivable sin to worship on Sunday.
They should.
They should.
Yeah.
Most don't. To be entirely honest, most Seventh-day Adventists are in the compatibilist wing now. There's the traditionalist holdout, but that's what happens when you don't appoint a successor and you have no way to enforce doctrine.
But I've also heard some argue that instead of the unforgivable sin, it is instead the mark of the beast.
Yes, and so they play footsie with it. Yeah. They'll often still acknowledge, worship on Sunday. There's technically nuance. So
either way, you're pretty much damned.
Yeah. So they'll say, when the Antichrist comes, the symbol of his authority will be worshiping on Sunday, and that's what he'll command. If you currently worship on Sunday, you're wrong, that's okay. When the Antichrist reveals himself, if you follow his commands, which would include worshiping on Sunday, then you'll get the mark of the beast, and you'll be damned. That is a different claim. It's still erroneous. It's a dangerous claim, but that is a different claim than saying it is the mark of the beast right now and you're damned already.
Yeah.
Two different things. Because as Christians, we do believe that there will be an Antichrist, and non-Christians will take the mark of the beast. And so their claim about it being one of those attributes of the Antichrist, a defining attribute being worshipping on Sunday, that's erroneous. Yeah. But there will be heretical attributes that the Antichrist will require people to follow. And there will be evidence that those people who follow them aren't Christians. Mm-hmm. And so that's basically their claim. They're adding one weird a requirement that the Antichrist will make, but they're saying that if you do it, it's evidence you're not a Christian, and you'll get the mark of the beast. Yeah. That is a completely different claim than the reverse, or than the other.
I think it will be at least, it should be tellable for Christians to realize that the Antichrist is the Antichrist.
Yes. And so, again, they are historicist pre-mill with their own spin on top of it, of Adventism.
So how do they relate to the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Both Millerite movement.
Okay.
Both believe Jesus has returned spiritually. Mm-hmm. They use the same vocabulary. They both have their conferences. Call them the same thing. They have the same hierarchy, the same church structure. Mm-hmm. They originally had almost identical tenets of denying the Trinity. They both have this weird thing where they believe that Jesus and Michael the Archangel are tied together somehow. Mm-hmm. The difference now, today, although I don't know if this is original, but the difference today is that Jehovah's Witnesses will say Jesus is Michael, meaning Jesus is just an archangel. Some Adventists will say Michael is Jesus, and that's different.
It's
because
a title, yeah.
Yes, because what they're saying is when we have a pre-incarnate showing of the angel of the Lord, that angel of the Lord's name is Michael. Mm-hmm. That's not denying Jesus' divinity, not denying the Trinity, nothing. It's just giving a name, a label, to the angel of the Lord that we see in the Old Testament.
Right.
It's still wrong, but it's less concerning than Jehovah's Witnesses. And
are these the guys who say that Jesus was the greatest of God's creations?
Yes, firstborn of all creation, first created being, all of that. Again,
which is how they distort the gospel, right? They take away Jesus' divinity. Mm-hmm. They
add works.
They add works. They have a very big... They're really big on the do not seek independent knowledge, right?
Oh yeah, the original sin is independent thinking.
Yeah,
according to Jehovah's Witnesses.
So is that why the Watchtower exists?
Yeah, so the Watchtower was originally just Charles T. Russell. He was the faithful and discreet slave, and he
Great
was
title.
It comes from a parable taken out of context from Jesus. But faithful and discreet slave who dispensed the spiritual food to the congregation, and the institution built around him became known as the Watchtower. Today, because again, Charles T. Russell sets up a successor. That successor then has other people join to be his counsel, basically. Mm-hmm. If I'm getting this history correct, it's a little bit fuzzy because Jehovah's Witnesses don't emphasize their original leader. Their original leader basically just sets up a succession, dies, and their succession just runs with it and future-proofs the religion so it can survive longer. It gets a council of people, which now compose, I believe it's the General Assembly. That might not be right. It's been a while. They're the faithful and discreet slave. Now it's a plurality of people, generally between 5 and 12 in number. Morris was one guy that just left. For instance, he just got he left the top. He was in the top ring. He's left now. But anyway, they have this top ring that lead to the Watchtower and therefore the organization, and it's just dispenses down. And the way they justify it is similar to Judaism, right? With Judaism, it has the righteous ones that can communicate with Christ. With God, but as Christians we believe God, Christ, but they communicate with God and dispense spiritual food to their people, their followers. Jehovah's Witnesses basically practically believe the same thing. It's the same lie, just wrapped up again by Satan in new wrapping for different people. Mm-hmm. You have the faithful and discreet slave, this little council of people. They actually communicate with Jesus because Jesus is spiritually returned in the top story of the Watchtower, which again, directly in contradiction to Matthew 24, that says if anyone tells you that Jesus has returned in an upper room, do not believe them. They literally believe Jesus is spiritually returned in an upper room. They communicate with Jesus and dispense the spiritual food to their congregation, which is why you find salvation through them, because they're talking with Jesus.
Sorry, go ahead.
Which is just like a tangent of why I think it's so great to look at the Bible and then look at these cult things. Because it's reflecting that not only is the Bible isn't just making broad statements about the false teachers, it is literally predicting the false teachers that are going to come. It's really insane if you look at it, the specifics.
Yeah, Jesus specifically says things that seem incredibly targeted to ward against erroneous teachings that would later emerge.
Yeah.
Just very pointed, specific statements like the upper room thing. And then you find a cult that comes around, Jehovah's Witnesses, who literally believe that. And so the foundations for these two cults are almost identical. This one, Jehovah's Witnesses, established good leadership, succession plan, and a growth strategy to keep their members in line with original doctrine, more or less. They come out with new light all the time. For instance, now they can grow small beards. They don't have to wear a three-piece suit anymore. They still have to dress nicely, like Sunday best, but not three-piece suit.
They're liberalizing.
Yes, they are actually. They are. And they no longer have to fill out time cards of service time. Instead, it's measured, if I remember correctly, it's now measured by your output, right? So if you are able to meet with a lot of people, that's what they look for. They don't need your time slots. And so they change things, but they're more or less original doctrine. These guys, no leadership, no succession plan, no growth strategy. Their members just kind of get to do whatever. And so, like, most of them don't even believe their cult doctrine anymore.
So to a certain extent, the Seventh-day Adventists are very Protestant. With today, the Jehovah's Witnesses, a good way to picture Jehovah's Witnesses is baby birds in a nest.
Yeah.
They sit there with their mouth open.
Yeah.
They encourage study of the Bible independently, but the way you do that is through their workbooks.
Yes, because their workbooks are written by the people in the Watchtower who are dispensing spiritual food from Jesus to you.
I would say most Jehovah's Witnesses almost believe the exact same thing because it is directly fed to them exactly how you believe it.
Yes, and that is how you manage a cult.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you need. That's why Seventh-day Adventism I rank so lowly. So lowly, not lowly as in like lowly in value, but like low in scale.
Yeah, them being the worst cult out of the ranks is a good thing.
Yes.
It's good.
Completely. Because when you don't have a succession plan and a way to keep your growth strategy going, keep your members in line, your members just won't stay in line. Give it 150-ish years, and your cult will be completely different. And they're like the caterpillar that's now turned into a butterfly. You've got a little, like, still dandruff from the cocoon hanging on, but mostly you're a completely different creature that's basically Protestant.
Where the JWs, I think, fail the most, in my opinion, when it comes to being a cult, is super boring.
Yes.
No perks.
Yeah.
And then they are very quick to just, like, kick you out. Like, you're done. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And there's really no
They don't
way
even
back
try
in.
to get you back.
Yeah, no.
They actually will purposely, if they know that
they avoid you.
Yes.
Bye.
They'll physically turn their back on you if they see you.
Yes.
Bad retention strategy.
Now, Mormons, what's lovely about Mormons is very similar to the JWs, the Seventh-day Adventists, is they come from a prophet, or supposed prophet, who came with a new gospel, which was very similar to the first.
Yeah.
However, it's changed slightly. They add works to it. You get to heaven through your own righteousness. And throughout time, it gets worse.
Yes.
So what started, as far as early in the book, what starts as very similar to Christianity, but like, works are thrown in and whatever, turns into the entire idea of who God is has completely changed.
Absolutely.
So now men and women, or I'll stick with men. Men
easier
are equal in a sense to God the Father.
Totally.
Who is in heaven.
Ultimate pantheist religion.
How he is, men can become, because he once was man.
Literally just engraved in Salt Lake City, Utah.
It is an endless cycle of gods. So before the God of this universe, he was on earth with his own God, right?
So the God, not this universe, but the God of this planet, right?
No, this universe.
Are they multiverse? They believe in multiple universes? Well,
so everything that is in our current universe, I believe, is in the dominion of that God. So I think it's multiverses. I could be wrong with that.
I'm very ignorant comparatively on Mormons, so I could be wrong too.
Because he lives on a star.
Oh.
Right? So
I don't know.
Therefore,
never heard
although the idea is you do get your own planet. So maybe he does get... Oh, no, it would be...
I thought Jesus was just the God of this planet.
Yeah.
So Jesus might be.
Yeah.
Because he's created.
Yeah. Who's God the Father? How does that work?
God the Father, I think, has control over the universe.
Okay.
Because everything that was made, he made out of things that already existed.
See, this is why, like, I know enough to demonstrate to a Mormon why they need to accept Jesus, and I can use their own book against them. Just go to the last chapter, Moroni chapter, I think 10 or something. Literally says that grace is only covers you after you become perfect, which is a huge problem.
Because you can't become perfect.
Well, and is that really grace? If you earn 100% on your test and then the professor gives you 100%,
it's not grace.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, thanks. You could have done that beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. and so I know enough, but I'm very ignorant in comparison to Mormonism. So I bet you're right. That's just news to me, and that's the problem that their missionaries don't actually know what they're talking about, so you don't need to know much.
And they have super good indoctrination process.
Yes, they do.
It's very
really
shallow
good.
at the beginning. Even their missionaries don't know much.
No.
But they send missionaries out like candy.
Oh, I saw some in Peru.
They're amazing with
It's
it.
almost impossible to go throughout your life without meeting a Mormon missionary.
Even Brandon Sanderson, been a missionary. He's probably the current most famous fantasy author today. Again, lives in Utah. Unfortunately. Super cool guy. Great if you're looking for writing advice. He's awesome, but he's a Mormon, teaches at BYU still. And he talks routinely about being a missionary and being shipped out. A guy who basically almost isn't even Mormon now, even he was a missionary growing up. It's just, yeah.
Well, and with Mormons, right, the big draw is you get to become a god if you do all the right things, right?
Yeah.
It's very exclusive.
Into literature, Brandon Sanderson has literally become the god of his own universe, and he distills bits of Mormon doctrine into his books. It just, it's like simulation theory, which again is false. But this idea of, in the real world, you get to become God. They have a huge propensity for pushing out creatives who make up their own worlds and become the gods of their own little worlds before they attain their own godhood of a real planet. It's really interesting, the psychology behind that.
If you look at historically a lot of cults, and a lot of cults nowadays, is that most people stay for the surface level stuff and they don't care to look deeper because they're in for the familiar.
Yeah.
For like the company it produces. And so when a lot of cults that are absolutely ridiculous, that might have ridiculous views later, the further they go in, when they get deeper, they realize how ridiculous it is. And either one, sunk cost fallacy, they stay because they've already sacrificed so much and have people.
Yep.
Or two, they leave because they realize how ridiculous it is. But with Mormonism, the thing is, when you get deep enough, instead of seeing how ridiculous it is, they promise you more stuff. And so instead of just the familiar stuff and relation with God, you learn, so if I go in deeper, now, it's still consistent with the original beliefs I had as a smaller belief in Mormonism, but now I get to become a god and make my own stuff.
Yeah.
So it's better for keeping followers than some other cults.
When you get all these, you get pretty much endless wives in heaven. Actually, I think it's how many you marry on Earth you get in heaven, something like that.
In which religion? Mormonism?
Mormonism, yeah.
That's changed over time.
Well, yeah,
as most cults do.
Yeah.
Well, because they started in America, and America banned polygamy.
And they wanted to become a state, so.
Yeah, and then they started saying the Book of Mormon is not polygamous, even though
some of them. Bring up the RLDS to them.
RLDS.
Freak out about that.
What's so funny is it's called the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
And they used to be fine being called Mormons. Actually, there's clips of one of their old prophets being like, there's no higher name we'd rather have. But now being called Mormon is like derogatory to
people
them.
know what it is.
They could be like Christians and just accept it and own it, but no, they're like,
They're Latter-day Saints.
I don't want to be called a Mormon.
Yeah, in that voice, in that exact voice.
Yeah,
they
with
say
their
it.
blue eyes and blonde hair.
I'm a Latter-day
Yep.
Saint, actually. I have blonde hair and blue eyes, and I'm still a
Their
Jew.
white button up and not pink.
Actually, yes, they named so many stuff in Salt Lake City just after biblical Jewish actual land masses.
Yep.
Just, yes, because every cult wants to get in on the sweet I'm Jewish thing.
I'm the chosen people. No,
yeah,
I'm the chosen people.
That's why.
Which again,
because you're chosen people.
all my criticism is on rabbinical Judaism as a religion. I'm not devaluing ethnically Jewish people, just like I wouldn't devalue ethnically German people. They're awesome. Same with Mormonism. They all want to claim to be, we are perfectly special as a religion.
If Judaism wanted to define cult as distorting the heritage or message of Judaism, I think Mormons would be the highest on their list. Actually, no. Muslims, because they believe that white people are the true Jews or whatever.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Muslims believe that the chosen people came from Ishmael, if I'm correct.
Yep.
I could be wrong.
And that they're all throughout time, they were all the first Muslims.
Yeah.
So they just basically, they're like the little kid that has multiple options for the dessert. And instead of just picking one, they go, mine. And they just say it's all theirs.
Everyone was a Muslim.
Yep, it's all theirs. They just have impulsive disorder.
Chris, why don't you give us a breakdown of how Islam is a cult?
Oh my
Since
goodness.
seeing as that you have read all of the
Okay.
Yeah,
so-
you are more sanctified and better than all of us. Just want to acknowledge that.
Yes.
So if we're depending on
Highly
the
exalted.
so
Yeah, you can be the leader.
Oh, really?
Of this podcast,
well,
absolutely, for like the next 30 seconds or however long you're explaining.
I am in our middle table seat, so of course everything's pointing towards
Can you
me.
make a statue of yourself and ask for veneration but not worship?
I would love to.
I'll give Catholics credit. They make funny. I've seen funny memes of like, Protestants say we worship Mary. Their definition of worship, it shows guys breakdancing on stage.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Leave your church if your worship leader is in skinny jeans, a fog machine, and breakdancing.
Yeah.
Yep. That's like you are one step away. Literally, no hyperbole. Mm-hmm. It's actually hyperbole. No hyperbole though. Mm-hmm. From the men's conference that hired a strip dancer. A pole dancer.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I remember. Oh,
yep.
That's
basically the next step. If your worship leader gets up and starts breakdancing with a fog machine, the next Sunday you're going to come and there's going to be a pole set up there.
And Pastor Cinnamon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No. But yeah.
We've got problems.
Islam.
I shouldn't even say we. Man. Well, it's just they're not. Anyway, I don't think they're Christians.
Neither do I. But with this, it's also not Christian.
Yeah.
And the reason I think this is the uber cult is because it ticks all the boxes. We talked about secular cults before. We talked about their definition of cultism and Christian. Mm-hmm. This ticks both boxes because for the secular version of the control tactics, where other religions, as I was talking before, like when you get too deep into it, they'll leave. But in Islam, you can't. Not only because you're family, but also they'll kill you if you do. Yeah. So they have to ration in order to these weird rationales of how to explain like Sahih al-Bukhari weird verses. Yeah. And so it's really, really control. It's subtle control tactics. But the more you start trying to leave, the more pressure they put onto you. Yep. And so in that fact, it's a cult. But it's also probably the biggest perversion, other than maybe Judaism or something. It's a huge perversion of the Christian Bible. Yep. Because, first of all, in Islam, they specifically say that Allah gave Isa or Jesus the Injil Gospels, and basically they say that it's the word of Allah, but of course we see those contradictions, but you can't leave Islam, so you need to create excuses. Mm-hmm. And so they will say that the old one was lost, even though we can prove it wasn't. And so the problem with it is it constantly uses Christian as a backbone, but then denies its own backbone. Yep. Islam cannot be true if there is no Abrahamic basis behind it. Mm-hmm. And even with the Abrahamic basis, it's still not true.
Greatest weakness is this Achilles heel. Because it claims the Tarat, the books of Moses, the Zabur, David's Psalms, and the Injil, the Gospels, but then turns around and says, Jesus is not God, and we will not worship him.
So it's a huge perversion of the gospel, and more than that, it's Muhammad taking the because in Christianity we accept Jesus, we call to him to accept. I remember we were talking to a Muslim woman earlier today, and she said that her answer for why you have to accept Muhammad, even though she believed it's all about being good to God or following God, is because she said they have to accept all the prophets. You guys have to accept Jesus. But the reason we accept Jesus is because he is God. Mm-hmm. Muhammad's taken that to a different extreme, where it says that not only can you just follow the tenets of Islam and follow God, you need to accept that Muhammad is who he says he was in his teachings. Yeah. So it's it's a control tactic cult, it's a biblical perversion cult, and it's a charismatic leader cult.
Well, something that's very interesting with Islam is it's not one that tells you can't think critically. No. But it is almost defaultly instilled that even if a critical objection is brought up, you immediately just default to it is like the most presuppositional religion I think that exists. Yes. Where it's like, well, it's true because Allah says it, or it's true because it's the Quran. Yeah. Well, why is the Quran true? Because it's the Quran. Yes. Right? And so
circular reasoning.
What that doesn't make a circle.
I had to do that with a witch one time. She goes, basically her justification goes down to, I know it's true because the vibes feel good. The vibes feel good because it's true. Therefore, the vibes feel good. And we've been going over for this for like 30 minutes straight. She was a very nice lady. And so I didn't want to, be too insulting or anything, but it was just bad reasoning. And so after like 30 minutes of trying to explain this, I eventually just looked at her and said, can you, after she re-summarizes it, I asked her, can you see how that might sound a little bit circular? And I literally did it in there. And she thought about it a moment. She went, oh, yes, dear, I can. That's the beauty of
honest.
it.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Okay. That's exactly what the atheists say about the mystery of the universe.
Also,
that's exactly what they say. They're like.
Also, turns out she was blind. No, wait, sorry, deaf. But she could like
kind of
read lips.
Interesting.
I don't have any proof for this, but witches tend to almost always have some physical deformity or disability. I think is probably why. Yeah. But very interesting. Anyway, I was able to successfully get the scribe portal. Had to throw it out later, but had fun dishonoring it in the process in order to honor God, and it was great for evangelism outreaches when talking to witches.
I have a particular place in my heart currently for really wanting to dishonor a Buddha statue.
Yes.
That's like just has been on my mind for like almost a year now.
Well, and it's really biblical to do. Think of Gideon.
I need to get one off Amazon, because I give money to Amazon anyway.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's very biblical. I think of Gideon with the statue, where he literally cuts down the statue of Baal. When the Ark of the Covenant is taken in by the Philistines into the temple of Dagon, God, almost in this righteous pettiness to display his sovereignty and power, dishonors the statue of Dagon by slicing his head off, putting him in rubble, and leaving the head at his feet. And then the priests get so scared they write this on the Ark of the Covenant back. And there's a little verse that's really interesting. It talks about how they actually essentially rope off this little square that the Ark of the Covenant had been, because they kind of recognize that God's claimed it. And they're just freaked out. And so I actually think that it's super biblical to take a pagan statue, particularly, again, because we have so many, it's just one-to-one, basically, with the Old Testament, where you take a statue, in particular, something physical that belongs to, that Satan has claimed, and then just dishonor it. You cut off its head, you do something to show that this has no power here. God does. And so I think that's a great idea. Again, Elijah's making bathroom jokes to the prophets of Baal as they're literally doing self-harm.
Maybe he's relieving himself.
If a Christian pastor saw, like, I don't know, a witch coven doing, like, cutting themselves for blood magic, and the pastor's response wasn't, come to Jesus, he'll be better, you won't have to do this. Instead he goes, ha ha, is there God in the bathroom? Super biblical, but we would say that's crazy. So I support crazy ideas if they're biblical.
That's fair.
Yeah. But no, with that.
And then slaughter them.
And then
slaughter them.
I just love that excuse of, but that's the beauty of it, because I call it the Bill Nye excuse.
Okay.
Because whenever they bring up an excuse, thing to Bill Nye, and they're like, so why is it happening? It's like, I don't know, and we don't know everything about the universe, but that's the beauty of it.
No.
And it's like, bro.
Willful ignorance is not beautiful.
Yeah.
No.
Being arrogant is
pathetic.
not beautiful.
It's just pathetic.
No. And so I think, have we gone through all the cults then? Why they're cults?
Yep. Yeah, I think
so.
What's
the next
Roman
step?
Catholics, maybe?
Ooh, we should talk about Catholics, because Christians don't...
They don't know that
Christians are a little too soft on Catholics. And I understand why, because the likelihood of a Catholic either not believing or misunderstanding or whatever it is and being saved is very high.
Yeah.
So with Catholics, there's a question that deserves to be asked with anything, or any Christian really, which is, how much do you have to get wrong before you are just not a Christian?
Yeah.
Now, you have to have the gospel right.
Yes.
That's the most important thing.
Yes.
So, this is where I think you could argue, is Catholics sometimes have the gospel right.
Sure.
But a consistent Catholic has the gospel wrong.
Completely.
Yes.
And where they have the gospel wrong is you have to work for your salvation.
Yeah.
Not only that, but there is an additional party involved in your salvation.
Yep.
Mariology is a big thing.
Yep.
Or the Marian dogmas, right? Mary actually partakes in your salvation.
Yeah.
I couldn't quote specifically how that is. I'm not entirely familiar. You probably could.
Oh yeah, we could we could talk about personally what priests say from even the Roman Catholic Church we went to, where he said, if you're not with the mother, then you do not know the Father.
Something along the lines of you do not acknowledge the mother and all that they believe she is, then you do not have God.
She's the gate of heaven, and
she is the gate of heaven.
Queen of
heaven, gate of heaven.
Yeah.
All of those who are saved are in her womb.
Yeah.
Right, and so it's super, super bad.
It's very pagan.
And so if people, I think if you get that wrong as a Catholic, I think you're. No, sorry, not even just that. It's that and works.
Yeah.
Because they elevate baptism beyond what it should be. They elevate confession to a brother beyond what it should be. They make you work off your sins. They have this idea of... I personally... You guys might disagree with this, and I might even acknowledge you on this. I don't personally believe purgatory is bad enough to consider you not a Christian.
Nope. It's consistent implications will get you to works, which is bad. But same with Lutherans. If they're consistent, they just be Catholics. They'll tell you in the same breath, baptism saves you. It is salvific in nature. And then turn around and say, but grace alone, but we're saved by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, on the basis of Scripture alone. Those are just not compatible statements. But they're still saved. And they'll just appeal to divine mystery, which is a bad idea. But okay.
I would
Catholics, yes.
On the start of purgatory, though, I would have to say... It's not in theory, but in practice, in the way that it is acknowledged.
Sure.
And the fact that if you're not good enough or bad enough to go to either place, you can still get out of purgatory through works or by what your family does on earth.
So the idea of purgatory is, at least the way it's modernly defined, but I want to give credit where credit's due. The way it's modernly defined is only Christians can go to purgatory.
Yeah.
Because
you are saved already.
So the lukewarm Christians, which Jesus said he would spew out of his mouth.
Well, no, every Christian spends some time in purgatory.
Every Christian goes to purgatory in that they believe that between death and being with God, somewhere along the line, you have to become perfect.
Yep.
Because nothing imperfect can enter God's presence. And so when you're on earth and you commit a sin that leads to you going to jail, you received a punishment for that sin, a temporal punishment. If you commit a earthly sin and don't receive justice for it, God will ultimately pay that justice. So if you die with certain sins not being disciplined properly, you go through some sort of purification process. You're saved from hell, ultimately by Jesus. But the temporal things that you were not punished for, that justice was not served on, is served somewhere between death and being with Christ.
Okay.
Now, that's why I say I don't like it does tie in with the whole works thing, because it's saying something along the lines of, you didn't confess a sin, or because it ties in with indulgences.
Yeah.
Because a full indulgence can pay a earthly sin.
Yep.
And then you don't have to pay that in purgatory.
They stopped that after we nailed enough stuff to their doors, but
what I really like is their catechism.
I do.
I've
memorized
I
most of
don't
it.
like... This might just be from me reading the Quran. I don't like when your doctrine and the good stuff is so few and far between.
Yeah.
The Catholic Catechism, every page, I'm like, you're giving me so much. It's so dense with knowledge.
Yep.
And I'm like, I get to learn why you're wrong.
Yes.
So quickly.
Right away. Right there.
That's
how you're
amazing.
misapplying verses.
They describe salvation like a... This is an analogy I came up with. Mm-hmm. Salvation in the Catholic Church is a manual flashlight. So you receive the flashlight from Jesus.
Yeah.
But you have to actively crank it for the light to shine.
I like that. That's great.
So you have to your entire life do this.
Yeah.
And if you stop, the flashlight turns off. So you have it, but it's useless.
Yeah, that's excellent. Actually, that's excellent.
I like it better than how the Council of Trent, how Trent on YouTube describe it, because he's trying
to channel.
I like Trent.
Yes.
Trent is a really cool guy.
I hate his view on salvation, though.
He basically, just because I like his channel, he's an exclusion. He can be saved arbitrarily for no reason.
He has not committed the unforgivables.
Yeah.
I bet he believes in Nephilim.
Yeah.
Therefore, he's saved.
Yes. I can't believe the Message Bible gets that right.
Yeah.
That's
What's
crazy.
up? At least they get it.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
Oh, it's so funny. Sorry, this is a complete tangent. The Queen James Bible.
Excuse me while I laugh over here.
Keep that in.
The Queen James Bible does not cite their translators or their editorial people. They
probably biased.
They don't cite it at all. And I'm like, even the Message Bible cites words. I'm like, the Message Bible should have done the same thing.
Yep.
It's not cited because now all those people that are listed, I'm just like, don't trust you with anything.
Yeah,
now.
no, absolutely. So have we gone through every cult? Let's do something
Christopher
quick.
had something to say about Catholics.
Oh, yeah.
I cut him off with.
What is it?
It was profound.
Oh, you said Council of Trent.
Oh no, yeah, Catholicism. I've read the Council of Trent. I had an aneurysm and kept reading.
I actually think it's a beautiful document.
I do not. I hate that thing. So much.
So it's not true, but it's useful for me to reference on Outreach because Catholics will say, well, we basically just agree, and I'll mention the Council of Trent and say, you rightly called us anathema because we have a different gospel. We also would call you anathema because you have a different gospel. One of us has to be right. And so it's worth talking about because we are not compatible. And I like pointing to it because, again, we have been protesting the Roman Catholic Church. They also protest us through the Council of Trent.
They are the Protestants. And we are...
They actually did have a counter-reformation. A reformation in reaction to our Reformation. And so we are both protesting each other, and I like to be able to point out that fact to Catholics so that they recognize we're at a crossroads. This is a conversation worth having, because we have different gospels. If I'm wrong, I will not go to heaven.
I don't like that we are called Protestant because it makes our entire identity like the prodigal son of the Catholic Church.
Totally.
It's like our entire identity is we're like this emo teenager that's like, no, mom and dad, I'm right, you're wrong, only my book and not dad, the Pope.
Yeah.
It's like, I would love if we had a new name that was not solely centered on...
They're called Christians.
The Catholic. That's true. They will still call themselves Catholic, and they'll also call themselves Christians, but the same way with Mormons, where Mormons are like, we're Christians.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, you're not.
That's why I really like my friend who says that he's loosely Protestant. I appreciate that, and I would rather extrapolate one level further and just say I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Because they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Neither are the Eastern Orthodox, neither are the Rabbinical Jews, neither are the traditional, original Millerites. That includes both these groups. Neither are the Mormons, neither are the Muslims.
There's something super important that we didn't mention with specifically cults that go past Christianity in a certain sense.
Okay.
A similar thing with these cults is the idea that either the Bible or the church had a falling out after the time of the apostles. So
this is why you should never use scripture when you found a cult, because you're going to have to deal with this whole idea of great apostasy, and it just doesn't go well.
The Mormons say that once the last apostle died, the church basically had no bearing whatsoever until Joseph Smith.
But John the Apostle is still walking around somewhere, by the way, according to them.
Bigfoot.
Definitely.
So both Cain and him are just two.
By the way, an addition by Atlantis that I'm not going to explain and I refuse to for the purposes of the podcast, mostly because it's funny now. I will also insert that Bigfoot is a fairy demon. No explanation necessary. It's just that obvious.
He steals your socks.
Haunted Cosmos. Haunted Cosmos.
Yeah. Oh, and not socks. Fairy demon who serves demonic beings that pose as aliens.
Yep.
Right on.
I actually do believe that though.
So no. Let's not elaborate. Let's keep going.
No. I got you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree with you.
So long live the Queen. No,
fairies exist.
Long live the Queen.
So,
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was right.
Muslims believe that the Bible has been corrupted. Similar, actually, with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Totally.
Believe that the Bible has been corrupted, so therefore we need a new book.
Yeah. Actually, and Rabbinical Judaism. I talked to a rabbi down in Florida, and he goes, Leviticus is entirely meaningless, Keegan. And his basis was there are secret esoteric symbols between the letters that only the rabbis have access to. And that is the foundation for the oral law. They have this thing called the oral law, which is just their version of the Book of Mormon. That's why Moses was on Mount Sinai for 40 days, 40 nights. He was obviously getting more than...
I think putting things into stone would take quite a long time, but sure, that works too.
Or just all the instructions for the tabernacle and everything.
That's
true.
Gnosticism?
Yes, that is why they are...
Because by reading Leviticus, you probably wouldn't build the tabernacle. He probably got like a lot of information on that.
Yeah, well, and the precise instructions for the tabernacle are found in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so I would argue that they do the same thing as all these other cults, which is why I think they're very comparable to Mormonism today.
What can we do better?
So much.
There's like
the bar way down here.
I will give them this.
Yeah.
He did it by himself.
Yes.
He did it by himself.
Okay, Joseph Smith did it by himself. Satan had to try.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Joseph Smith was just incompetent, and Satan used it afterwards. I think Satan definitely.
I think he was influenced by Satan. You take the view he was like it was like full con man thing.
That said,
partially.
So that's my current view. That said, I'm ignorant on. I've not read the whole Book of Mormon. I could be wrong.
Because
I'm open to that. You've read more.
Because at least
so far I think you have like a good point. It could just be like, if I want to make something up, what would be influential?
Yeah. It just seems like the 14-year-old's perfect Marvel fan fiction, basically.
Well, yeah. Because like with this one, at least seems like it was trying to like imitate like the Gospels before, and this one just seems like the devil was on LSD and talking.
To be fair, to lend to your point of the con man thing, anytime somebody encounters an angel, it's accompanied by fear.
Yep.
He was afraid.
Demonically afraid.
We have no reason to... Actually, I think he was afraid. No, I think he was curious.
Oh my, that's just...
Why do you think... This is a question I have. Mm-hmm. I have ideas. Why do you think people like Joseph Smith and Muhammad created these cults? Like, my thought is, if I was going to start a cult, and people didn't immediately like it, and they're like, I'm getting tons of pushback, I'd kind of just drop that and move on. But they didn't, right? It took a while for Muhammad to gain, like, conquering fame.
Yeah.
Joseph Smith, I don't think had immediate popularity.
I don't know enough. I am.
I'm not super knowledgeable either.
Actually, it didn't take, as far as I remember, it didn't take terribly long for some people to follow Joseph Smith. He did get pushback where like they actually told him to repeat. They took away his papers and told him to use the same stuff to rewrite the Book of Mormon, and he couldn't.
I remember that.
And they teased him for that. But eventually, in the same way that like this will use leverage as like a family thing, eventually there were enough Mormons so that in order to be friends with certain people, you had to be Mormon. And eventually, through his teachings, he did get enough people to start like a Mormon Reformation killing thing.
Oh yeah, good old genocide. So it was long overdue.
It happened a lot faster.
There has been one for ages.
Which cult did I say was a Reformation of Islam? Baha'i. It's Baha'i.
Yeah.
Baha'i is like tried to reform Islam and they got slaughtered.
As one does. Like, how do you not see that coming? How do you not see that coming?
Muhammad was wrong.
Especially when you have Prophet Bob.
Probably
not the Bob.
Yeah, the Bob should have renamed himself.
The Bob.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
Okay, let's create a better cult.
Yeah. Okay, first step, we gotta bury our books.
No. Well... Okay, which way are we taking this? Do we want to go all in on the weirdness? Because all of these have a little bit of weirdness, but they don't have it all.
Let's try to make the most effective cult.
Yeah, don't touch the Bible with a 10-foot pole.
No, don't even reference scripture.
Because you don't want to have to deal with like the fact that the Bible has been actually preserved throughout all time.
Yeah, if you mention the Bible, you've immediately lost.
Yes, don't mention the Bible. You can mention Hinduism, because they can't even agree on essential text, and you can get points for being the oldest religion, so you can say we're original.
Well, so you could, except everybody in Islam now already hates you.
Okay, but who doesn't
like? Though?
Well, I don't. So they already have history with Hinduism. So if you're going to create a cult, it should be fresh.
Okay, fair.
Because again, so it needs to be the oldest.
But you need to be fresh and how do you do that?
It's hard.
Oldest, fresh.
Yeah. So that it has to be something that like you can accidentally be a part of it. Like with Islam, they're like, oh, anybody who believes in one God's Muslim, except you also have to do Shahada.
Gnosticism. Oldest thing, you can't kill it. It's like a Hydra. You can claim ancient ancestry because it goes all the way back to like the Tower of Babel. Nimrod is just from Satan. And you can claim pre-flood knowledge. You can sound super cool, esoteric, and it lets you be a little bit abstract. You don't have to reference the Bible at all. And you get the age of being old, but you still sound new because the New Agers love you. I mean, New Ageism is literally just the philosophy of the occult, which has overlap with Gnosticism, just without some of the weird spiritual stuff. So you can be that.
Gnosticism. Okay, so we're all like flesh is bad, spirit is good.
Sure, but also you get the inside knowledge, right? You have
secret knowledge.
Secret knowledge, divine gnosis, and again, you trace your way all the way back to at least Plato, probably pre-flood. Again, you get to trace yourself back to Atlantis. They claim Atlantis. As we all know, Atlantis existed. I'm not going to explain that, but it did.
Too many podcast episodes, right? Like lined up.
And so
come back next time for Atlantis.
Maybe. I mean, Just do your own research. We found it already. Go on Google Maps.
Don't be frozen chosen. Go do something about it.
Yeah, thaw.
go defrost.
So I don't want to really explain Atlantis because, one, it's not that hard to figure out, and secondly, it would take forever to explain. Just go to Honda Cosmos. They've got an excellent episode, and they're entertaining.
They're very entertaining.
But Atlantis obviously existed, has Gnosticism. You can claim it. You can claim pre-flood knowledge. Arguably, you are the oldest religion apart from actual Christianity. You beat Islam, you beat every other cult, and you're vague, because no one has full pre-flood knowledge. So you can kind of morph with the times, and every doctrinal update, you can be like, well, we just discovered more. And
there's just more pre-flood knowledge.
Yes, and
you could go the Catholic route, where it's like, well, it's a supposed contradiction.
Yes. Yep, and if outside people criticize you, you've got the divine gnosis argument.
Yeah, you don't have the full knowledge.
Yeah, you can't understand until you accept our gnosis. You've not accepted our gnosis because you haven't joined. Therefore, you don't understand. And it's easy to join because it's kind of vague, right?
So how does everybody fall into it, though?
I mean, most of America already has critical race theory, Gnostic. Marxism, Gnostic. Progressivism, that very word is just Gnostic. That newer is better because the Hegelian dialectic is how most people operate. Even people that wouldn't say they're Gnostic, if you go to a college campus, most people implicitly operate off of the Hegelian dialectic. And so we can claim them without them realizing. They don't have to accept our metaphysics and our
their actual reality is just like
the way they view the world is Gnostic, whether they realize it or not. So they don't have to accept our whole world history and doctrinal statements and all that, but because our culture already pre-programs you to reason like a Gnostic, to accept our basic tenets, you implicitly already are, whether you realize it or not. If you accept a critical theory, critical race theory, Marxism, that sort of stuff, we can claim you. If you label yourself a progressive, we can claim you. If you say anything good about the Hegelian dialectic, like you're a philosophy major, because they'll always affirm that basically, we claim you. Essentially, if you are part of the left at all, if you're even a classic liberal, right, we can claim you. We can claim every liberal and every conservative in the West, so long as you accept the Enlightenment. Because the Enlightenment, again, one of the most Gnostic terms out there, if you accept any Enlightenment ideals, we claim you. And almost every conservative does, right? I want society to go back to pre-Enlightenment. The Enlightenment is evil. It was actually darkening. The term
the Enlightenment was darkening.
The term the Dark Ages, if you read the full quote, it's saying that Christianity was flourishing with the brightest time ever, but the dark stain of Islam was coming upon the West. That's the term Dark Ages. Dark Ages is a reference to Islam, not medieval Europe.
Let's go.
And so I want to go back to medieval Europe, essentially. I've played with the idea of being a monarchist because I think it's pretty biblical.
Sure.
If you're not willing to be crazy like that, we can claim you.
Okay.
We've got just about everybody. We've got Trump and Kamala. Both.
We unite the world.
We do.
Here's the thing,
we do. We can claim just about everyone.
The problem with following the progressivism is that eventually, if you're going to follow progressivism, at one point you're going to become the Gnostics. So if we're going to have central scriptures, we're going to need to hide them like the Mormons.
Gnosticism already has that. It's called the Hermeticus.
That's true.
It comes straight from Hermes. Again, straight from a demon. So the demon wrote a book, gave it to Plato about pre-flood knowledge. That's their actual lore. I personally believe it. It totally seems like a demonic thing. Hermes probably did write it. I believe that. It's called the Hermetica in honor of Hermes. I think it also claims that an Egyptian deity also had a role in it. I don't remember which one. I think Ishtar.
Egypt.
Exactly.
My reformed Egypt.
So we've got a book to build off of, and it's flexible. It doesn't technically have a whole lot of core doctrine, like New Agey is just kind of esoteric and out there. So we can write our own book on top of the Hermetica. Right, the Hermetica is our baseline. We can make our own book on top of it to make us distinct.
Would there be any problem, though, associating with mythology?
I don't know. Most modern day Gnostics, because I joined a Gnostic club at my campus the last semester. I was part of it just because I wanted to learn about Rabbinical Judaism, and Rabbinical Judaism is also Gnostic. And I was like, hey, there's not many Jews out here in Eastern Washington, where I was at the time. So I was like, what's the next best thing? Let me join a Gnostic club on campus. I was a very faithful member. They loved me.
They loved me.
I was also very annoying because I was the lone dissenter. They also loved Calvinism. They actually told the Gnostic club leader who'd read the Hermetica told me that he liked Calvinism because it was compatible with Gnosticism. He loved it.
He's
I
not
actually
wrong.
agree with it.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, he follows James White. That's how much he loves him. He's like, James White, if I was to be a Christian, I would be James White.
I would be, not
Yes.
I would follow him.
I would be.
James White.
They're fun. But anyway,
I
where
admire
was I?
James White.
Yeah, I do too. I like him. But Calvinism has some Gnostic stuff.
I have questions for James.
I do too. Love the guy. Totally. Yeah, anyway. I have stuff to say. But besides that, what was the original question? I'm sorry.
The original question was like associating with Greek mythology.
So technically you do, but most modern Gnostics don't know if they accept it because you can be really fluctuating. So long as you agree with the Hegelian dialectic, divine gnosis, that basic stuff, you can play fast and loose with the mythology. Technically, a traditional Gnostic agrees with the mythology, but it's kind of like Christians today. How there's some actual Christians who somehow still deny literal Genesis and creationism. Totally contradictory. No Christian should be denying creationism. The Earth is roughly 6,000 years old. That's just pretty obvious scientifically, biblically, all of that. But somehow some actual Christians do. And so some actual Gnostics today deny the mythology, and they're still Gnostic because of their metaphysics and how they reason. So
Yeah,
you can get away with it.
You need to make it broad.
You can have fundamentalist Gnostics and like normal Gnostics, and the fundamentalist Gnostics are going to accept all the mythology.
The problem is if we add on to something that already exists, we are by default held accountable to that text. So we need our own text. So we need to create it from scratch. But
We don't want a demigod because Hermes is a demigod, right?
Yes.
We want to go to the source. We're going to get our text.
Zeus.
Exactly.
Zeus.
Zeus. We are Gnosticism, but better, and we're the original.
And he delivers it
Hermes
to
messed
you in an instant, just like lightning bolt.
Yep.
He
leaves in gold dust, like he does every time he has a weird sex encounter.
And if you're a woman, he raped you, but that's besides the point.
Well, the question becomes for Muhammad.
We got the weird sex stuff done.
Yeah,
That's
and so is Muhammad the lesbian sexual lover of Solomon? Because then he'd better never meet Zeus.
Yes.
Yeah. The question is,
we need weird stuff though, because we haven't completed a cult. So so our source text comes from Zeus, supposedly. We need weird stuff. Cults have weird stuff.
Yeah.
They have like no women included in their religion at all, basically.
Yeah.
Read chapter 4.
I'll give them credit though. Islam would reject the 19th Amendment, as every good person should. So I do appreciate some things about them.
Expand? What do you think of?
Oh, well, so the 19th Amendment pretty directly led to most of the social decay today by allowing women to vote, which is a horrible idea, both statistically bad voters and just biblically that's not their role. Their role is to protect and provide. Isaiah 3:12 says that it is judgment on a nation when women rule over you and children oppress you. Deborah is allowed to be a judge, but she specifically mentions to Barak, funny name now that we have a president with a similar name, but anyway, Barak.
I call him Barak.
Barak, there we go. We'll call him Barak. I'm like pretty sure that's not how it's supposed to be pronounced, but that's okay. Barak, that he should have stepped up. When he refuses to, she's like, well, as judgment for that, women will kill Sisera. So it's pretty clear that, Amy Carmichael, right? God raises up amazing women missionaries in almost every instance because the culture they live in isn't producing good, godly men who would step up in their place. Amy Carmichael, amazing. God designed her to be a missionary to India. She gets to India, though, and she looks around her, and the missionaries around her are all men, and they're not doing their job. In fact, she talks about how they just go on vacation up in the Himalayas all summer with and they pay tons of servants. They live this lavish lifestyle, completely ripping off their supporters, just not doing their job. And so she concludes that God raised her up instead because of that.
As like a form of judgment for them.
I don't know if...
Not that she would claim that, but it's like...
Yeah, she might have claimed that, right? I don't know enough, and I don't want to say something that I don't know. She might have. I'm not 100% sure. And this is even coming from YWAM's recounting of her life. YWAM is not exactly the most conservative Christian group. They do some good stuff. And their Brown Book series on missionaries is amazing and fantastic. Totally recommended. But my point is, it's coming from YWAM. And even they attest to this fact about Amy Carmichael. And so it seems that... And right now we have a lot of women who are missionaries, right? Vodi Bakum talks about it. You go to Africa, you shake a tree, and like 20 women missionaries fall out.
I love Vodi.
I do. And
great.
so God raised, it is a man's job to protect and provide. That's why we're against the draft, right? Because it's not that women can't do it. Some women are strong enough to do it, but they shouldn't be fighting on the front lines, because it's our job to sacrifice for our families, our people, and our community in that way.
It's just not a smart idea to be sending your women to war.
That's true, but and same with voting, but that's not why I base the case on.
Yeah.
Because just because you're bad at it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means you're going to have, proportionally, there's going to be less of you doing it, because you're mostly bad at it.
Not even the might thing. It's just like, if you're already sending your men population to war, it's a bad idea to send the rest of your population to war as well, because then you got no one back actually producing
It
stuff.
depends, yes. Generally, yes. It can depend, but again, natural law can only get you so far. Natural law can't actually get you to Jesus, right? Natural law can give you vague principles, but it can't actually give you concrete conclusions. And so natural law can point us to the vague principle that probably women shouldn't be fighting, but you can always find an exception where, like, some woman really is very strong, capable of doing it, and, you know, again, the woman who killed Sisera, she literally lets him fall asleep. She's a great hostess, right? Because she's a woman, great hostess. And then stabs him with a tent peg. Like, what a brutal way to go. And a woman did it. Women are capable.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong. I was more making the argument of you.
Judgment.
But no.
And so, but it's a judgment. Yeah. And so, natural law, I think, gives you the vague principle that probably you don't want your women fighting. But you can always find an exception, like the woman that killed Sisera. It's just that exception is generally God judging.
This is sorry, go ahead.
To finish my case.
Yeah.
Using the same principle, biblically, of why we're against women being drafted. In a democracy, that right, fighting is how you protect against external threats. In democracy, the way you protect from internal threats is voting. Right? If you want to elect a good president to be in charge of that military, you're going to vote. If you want to protect your military, you protect your defense from turning sour, you're going to vote against a bad president. You're going to vote against bad politicians. You're going to vote against DEI and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so the way to protect your society from internal and external threats, when you extrapolate outwards, has to be voting. And so saying that women can vote is just a violation of biblical standards in the same way the draft is. It just takes a little bit more thinking through. And so I do believe that the 19th Amendment is a mistake. Natural law can point you to the vague principle that it is by showing the fact that they overwhelmingly vote badly, but you'll find exceptions. There's a lot of conservative women out there, and so you need the Bible to reach a concrete conclusion.
I agree. I was more going on the argument of you shouldn't send your entire population to war, because then you have nothing to defend back home.
Oh yeah, but there's always going to be people that don't meet the criteria for being fit enough, right? Mm-hmm. And so regardless of how you do the draft, you're still going to have some people at home, which is why I say that natural law only gets you so far. It can show you the vague principle that most women just biologically, God hasn't created them fit for the draft, because they're created to actually bear the next generation who'll go into the draft, mm-hmm. which is arguably, C.S. Lewis said, is the most vital, honorable position in any society, is to bear the next generation and have right, there's a saying, women raise children, fathers raise men. But the point being is the most vital stage that determines who you are is going to be your first few years of development. Women overwhelmingly have the biggest role in the first few years for their child. And God designed them biologically for that, breastfeeding, just being able to stay at home. The father's out there providing. The father has a bigger influence in the teenage years, and that's also very formative. But if you want the most formative, it's when the kid is learning how to speak. When he's looking to you to learn every single movement, when he thinks that his mother basically can do no wrong and can protect from everything. Mm-hmm. And slowly, as he grows, he comes into his own identity, realizes that his father can protect, and starts to look to his father, and then that's how the father raises the man. Mm-hmm. Turns him from a child to a man, but the mother turns this human being from a infant to a child, basis of the identity. And so all that to say is, I would argue that the most honorable position for a woman is to be in the house, because it's vital, arguably the most vital thing you can ever do. And I think one of the reasons that our country is where it is now is, again, women are voting. They're therefore in the public sphere. They are going into the military. They are going into careers because apparently careers are more honorable than having children.
Okay, that frustrates me so bad.
Yep, and that's why the 19th Amendment is bad, because it led to the destruction of society. Now we put all our kids in daycare and we just give them to the government so that the government can raise your kid, mold them in their image, because we made the government God by passing the 19th Amendment. We committed idolatry through the 19th Amendment by abdicating our role as parents in society and saying, government, you can be God, you can raise my child, you get to make all the decisions. I'll throw my kid into daycare, I'll throw money at you, because now the woman's in the workforce too. The woman's voting, she's in the public sphere rather than the private sphere. Now we get public education, which also is evil. Now we cede everything to the government. We make the government God. And what do we get? We get liberalism and societal decay. We get 597 genders and a half, or however many there are as of 2 minutes ago.
I have a half gender.
Yeah. We can pretty much trace how we got to here to the 19th Amendment. The only reason the 19th Amendment could pass is because of the post-war consensus after World War II and the Enlightenment. The World War II was just brother war infighting, right? Look at the Enlightenment, French Revolution. Liberté, fraternité, equalité. From liberté, we get liberalism. From equalité, we get Marxism. From fraternité, we get fascism. We see all three ideologies infighting up until World War II. Fascism is overly aggressive. It threatens both Marxism and liberalism. Therefore, liberalism and Marxism make a temporary truce, very literally actually in this case, and team up to take down fascism because it's seen as the most aggressive, dangerous ideology. They do that, and then you have the Cold War, because now you have no third party that was consistently keeping everyone on edge, right? And now you have two big forces clashing, still to this day. You've wiped one out, but right in America at least, we live as a majority in liberalism, and so after we kicked out the aggressive brother of fascism, now we just have now we have the 19th Amendment, we have the sexual revolution. Now we can just run amok with socialist, liberal ideology and have 497 genders, or however many I said earlier, and a half.
Well,
so I'm not saying fascism is good. It's absolutely evil. So is liberalism and Marxism. They've also each killed so many people. Liberalism kills our preborn children. Marxism kills basically everybody. Fascism kills the Jews and, genetically inferior. And they're all evil. They're all absolutely evil. Fascism just tends to be aggressive.
And they also have the same thing, sort of gas and fuel that keeps them going. Like you said
completely.
with fascism, where he said that fascism is an action. Mussolini said fascism is an action. In the same way, communism and progressivism is also an action.
They are all Gnostic in different ways. It's because the Enlightenment was Gnostic ideology taking over the church. And so any child of the Enlightenment is going to be Gnostic, which is why I'm saying we can take over the world if we base our cult on Gnosticism, because pretty much the entire world has accepted elements of the Enlightenment, and it's just the poison you inject in society, and we can take advantage of that by starting our own cult.
Because religion, because set morals, ground morals create a stopping point. But that does not actually bode well with progressivism.
Yeah, because why the Enlightenment is so evil is what it did is it posited social contract theory, essentially, right? That's where we get today that marriage is just a contract, not a covenant, right? It posited that the relationship between men and their superiors, either hierarchically, as in rulers, or value-wise, as in God, is some ethereal contract. You sign a contract with your ruler, thereby putting you on equal playing field. That's all it is, right? Social contract theory says that it's not that God appoints rulers and tears them down, like the Bible says. Rather, it's that rulers get their legitimacy from the consent of the governed, which automatically justifies every single revolution, regardless of cause. Every time you rebel, apparently you're justified because you are saying that the ruler has broken the contract theory. Marriage also becomes that. It's saying, when really, again, biblically, all these relationships are covenants. King versus people, covenant. Marriage between man and woman, covenant. They're saying, no, it's a piece of paper. It's just a contract. It's just a piece of paper. How often do we hear that?
It's about love.
It pushes God out. Because again, marriage isn't just a covenant between man and woman. Mm-hmm. It's a covenant between three entities. Man, woman, God. With a nation, it's a covenant between ruler, ruled, and God. Social contract theory says, let's cut God out of the deal, practically become atheistic, and just make it this ethereal, esoteric deal that's ill-defined between ruler and ruled, between man and woman. It's just a piece of paper. You cut God out. As soon as you cut God out, you allow for ideas such as John Locke, evil man John Locke. He says, people are blank slates. Blank slates, you can be good, you can be bad, equal propensity to both, just based on society. You are fated to be who you become, because it's all just based on everything around you. Super fatalistic, it robs you of the ability to know truth, because it's just based on your surroundings, that's how you reach it. Rousseau comes along and says, actually, I'll do one better. People are basically good. They're basically good. It's not just that they're neutral, they're good. And that's where you get the Marxian quote of, men are born free, but everywhere are in chains. That comes from Rousseau originally. Then you get Marxism, which also posits people are basically good. Again, that's where all this ideology comes from. The Enlightenment severs God out of society, out of marriage, out of everything, says we don't want God, we can reason on our own, we can do it on our own, and then has three ugly children. Liberalism, Marxism, fascism. All equally ugly, I would argue, and equally destructive to society. They'll all ruin society because we need God and we decide to cut him out. And so if we want to make an effective cult that already includes basically everybody, just base it off the Enlightenment. Until we can roll back the Enlightenment, if you want to be effective, just basically mold the Enlightenment into your will.
I'm sorry, you just recreated the Freemasons.
They also came out of the Enlightenment, yes. As a fun fact. Also, apologies for my monologue. I've wanted to get that out for so long. I'm writing a book that's all about this, by the way.
No worries.
It's awesome.
So, a cult...
I agree.
It's perversion.
A cult is a perversion of the gospel, maintaining certain biblical themes.
Yes.
I would disagree on one account, is that not every cult is biblically themed. I would say it's perversion of a... I would include the Bible, because more often than not, but it would also specify the control tactic that's used in cults.
Yeah, so the problem is there's actually two definitions of cults, and we're playing with both of them here. There's the Christian biblical definition of a cult is perversion of Christianity. Mm-hmm. The secular definition of cult is how people use it colloquially, and if you go to any dictionary, the definition of a cult is going to be using the Beit model. The Beit model is a developed model, behavioral. I actually don't remember all of them. But anyway, point being is, it's level of control you have over people, level of uniformity, that sort of thing. Just think Borg with Star Trek, that definition. And so I agree that actually should be present in a cult. You need high conformity if you're going to keep your cult alive. But biblically, it's just perversion of Christianity.
So we can have both, though.
Yeah.
It's a perversion of Christianity
with high control.
With high control.
Yes.
Not just high control, but also certain control tactics that cults often use.
Yes, and so high control, we have to determine how do they get high control? Yeah. How do they achieve that? And that's the Beit model, is you have certain behavioral things, you have certain... I
think history's proven... if you make it a family model, it's going to be a lot harder for them to leave, and I think it's a better control tactic.
Yes, because again, the Enlightenment posits individualism. You as an individual are superior. Fascism says that, Marxism says that, liberalism says that. They just all say it in different ways. And so, and the reverse, actually, sorry. Liberalism and fascism agree, liberalism says the individual is superior. Marxism says the community is superior. Fascism takes a little bit of both. They're kind of weird on that. I don't actually know what they'd say on that. I don't think they have much opinion on that. They fight against individualism, and they end up saying that they're probably more collectivist. So we would say we take the third option. Or the third way, if you want to be sketchy with your wording. But, because that's associated with Nazism. But anyway...
nationalists would say that if you disagree, then you're betraying your own race, and that gives more...
No, that's ethno-nationalism. Specifically nationalism is awesome. And actually, most of Europe is ethno-nationalist, right? Yeah. Whether they like it or not. France is for the French, Ireland is for the Irish, Britain is for the Britons, Germany is for the Germans, right? They're all based... All those nations were originally based on tribes. America is unique because it's based on a proposition, which is an idea, which is different. And so I don't have a problem. Just be clear, people, on what you're basing your identity on.
I would disagree with you on that current day. It's ethno-nationalism, because currently Britain is very much not Britain. Germany is very much not German. It's very much controlled by the Islamic.
But originally, if you go back to their documents and history, that's what they're founded on.
Well, they're founded on, yes.
If you go back to the founding fathers of America, what we're founded on is a common proposition of liberalism. Because nationalism is a good thing. Finding some common identity as a nation is necessary. Multiculturalism is not a strength. You need diversity of thought is also not a strength. If you want a nation who's going to be able to be successful, you can't disagree on your founding principles. Because then you won't disagree on you won't agree on what to do. If your identity is found in your common shared culture and history and heritage, which is true for Europe, you can't let in Muslims and Arabs who have a completely different heritage, culture, and history. It's just not going to work.
Especially when their heritage and culture is hell-bent on destroying other heritage.
Yes. And so your nation has to be cohesive in whatever founding thing it's based on. America is proposition. You need your nation to be cohesive. You need your people. You can have whatever ethnicity you want in America. You just need them to basically be united on some, liking the founding fathers. If you don't like the founding fathers, you're going to have problems in America, which is, I think, where the left is, one of the reasons the left is so dangerous.
You're bringing up a good point in being strict to your foundation, because you cannot succeed otherwise.
Yes, completely.
I want to bring that into these books.
Let's do it.
Specifically, I think...
Thank you for getting us back.
No,
Gavin.
you're good.
Smooth.
You're good. Thank you. I think we need a hard way to leave.
Yeah.
And then we need weird, sexy stuff.
That's true.
And
Integral.
And then I think we close.
Okay. Hard way to leave.
Yes.
Oh, what are our actual secret doctrines?
Secret doctrines.
Because we didn't ever establish any.
That's true.
Because all the cults kind of are the same. They make the same pitfalls.
So these things. Basic doctrines.
Yeah.
A popular thing is like multiple spouses. So I think we don't have marriage. That's a very popular thing. And so we don't have marriage, but we have you could just sleep with whoever you want.
Fair.
Sex being open, I think, is going to be a super popular thing.
We could do the liberal thing. We could say that women have to. You can sleep with any woman you want, and we'll call it empowering because they.
Yeah. That actually works well with the Enlightenment and all of that. That actually could work. That could work. Yeah.
It's empowering. We can go backwards, which might not be as popular, but women have multiple husbands and men have one wife.
Yeah, that could work.
It would be different.
Yeah. It's weird sex
It'd be along the same. It's weird sex stuff.
Yeah.
It might not be as popular.
Yeah, because men were made to rule. If you capture the man, you capture his household, and we see that with Islam, with Mormonism. If you do it reverse, you're gonna be like Wicca. It's all single women.
We need perks for women, though. I think they all kind of suck at giving women stuff, and so women are more likely to leave.
Yeah. That's true.
So men can have multiple wives, but the wives should get something.
Yeah.
Oh well. I mean, Islam says that men will get twice the inheritance of the women, so maybe switch it around.
Yeah, but...
this pietistic thing of, if you suffer in life, you're saving up rewards for heaven. But that's not actually convincing enough. No, that doesn't really help. You need something now to gratify the flesh.
So the men are the leaders of their household, but the men worship their wives.
Oh. Yes. And they can have...
And one of our big... of our big things... all the women of a congregation go up on stage and we basically adorn them and we worship
so you can have divine feminine like the Catholics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Catholic.
Yeah,
and we'll call it veneration.
Yeah. Yes, it is good to be able to identify a focal point of veneration though. So it can't just be vague. I do like...
It needs to tie into our theology.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can have a whole Mother Earth thing. Environmentalism is a big thing.
The women are.
But then how would that go? How would that tie in with men being leaders?
Because the Quran talks about how women are fields for the men to plow. So turn it into a less sexist way towards women and more sexist towards men. The fact that it is the man's duty to basically venerate the woman by that. It's a weird sex stuff and it works with Mother Earth.
So So how do the men lead? Only men can be pastors and leaders. The leadership of the cult is all men.
We have a reverse nun thing.
Yeah.
Where the men are the husbands of Mother Earth.
Yeah.
But the women are the physical embodiment of Mother Earth.
Yep.
And that's why I need to venerate.
So Mother Earth is the big... Free will sells.
But it gives...
But they like trusting in something, right? And so we need to have something like Mother Earth watches out for them or something.
We could...
Okay. So in Gnosticism, the backstory, right, is You have cosmic good, cosmic evil. They're fighting. Cosmic evil traps the cosmic good in a material prison of his own making, and that's Earth. So see, his essence is scattered throughout all creation, all living things. That's why we're living. We have a spark of the divine. Mm-hmm. We need the divine truth is realizing our divinity and basically linking up to rejoin all the sparks together into one big being. And so we can have this thing where women are basically venerated because they all have this divine spark of Mother Earth, mm-hmm. and this greater being needs to one day be realized, and that's why we convert, is so that Mother Earth can be freed, and come into her own potential. And so we have this God, but this God that is dormant that we must fight for, and who left us with his ancient truth.
Awaken Cthulhu.
Basically.
With Gnosticism.
Yeah, well, in that way also, you get to... Your leadership can still determine doctrine, and you don't have to be accountable to the deity. You also have a nice...
It puts the control in our hands.
Yes, also and you have a ticking time clock, too, in the background, like the Jehovah's Witnesses do with Armageddon, where you have the return. If you just can't convert enough people...
You just gotta keep it super vague.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, then...
if you make it on progress, right? We don't know how many, but we need to convert the majority of people.
Exactly.
And when that happens, what happened?
Paradise. On Earth.
Yeah. Mother Earth gets awakened, because right now, right, the world is bad stuff.
Yep.
Flesh is bad.
Yep.
We're harming Mother Earth by not serving.
And that actually works in with the metaphysics of men leading, because women might have the divine spark in them, but Mother Earth is slumbering. They don't actually... They're not gods
They're
themselves.
not at their full strength.
Exactly. And so we need to be able to rescue Mother Earth. We still get to be the provider, protector, all of that, the liberator.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
Yep.
I hate that, but I like that.
No, I think it works great, I think. And it has an end. Every religion needs some end-time eschatology to give people hope. But this way is kind of vague and esoteric, and yet still cataclysmic and freeing.
It's kind of like post-mill.
It is.
Yeah, where you're basically bringing about the entire... So there's no specific goal you have to reach, or there's not a very specific goal. If you reach this point, and the end times will come, but it's it will eventually come, and you will bring it about.
Yeah, and no timetable, because that's important. You cannot set a date. As soon as you do, you're setting yourself up.
As soon as you set yourself a limit, you've already failed.
Yes.
If it's part of the veneration of women, you're also including the crazy sex stuff as a part of it. Yep. So I was encouraging them to do what they want.
And this way, we've got some central tenets. We've got a central motivating goal that we're working towards, and yet we're general enough that we can't be falsified easily, and we never touched the actual scriptures. I think it could. That's how you do it.
Yeah. So what's the consequence for abandoning?
You're cutting yourself off completely from the source of life,
and with.
But that's still not really that compelling.
Well, it's kind of like Islam with in the fact that the only reason Islam is growing in such a large way, and why Muhammad is the biggest...
Well, it's completely dying, but anyway.
Well, yeah, but the only way it's growing is through its familiar...
I'm wondering if... we're probably not thinking the same thing, but I'm curious what you're thinking.
No, I was just pointing at you because I'm like, I want to hear that idea. It sounds cool just by the way your face...
Oh, I was going to say, so like, a big thing of like, Mother Earth's wrath could be like forest fires, how they spontaneously happen.
Absolutely.
The higher up members, or like we can have a certain sect in the group, which is like member management.
Yeah.
And like on the surface it's super normal. But with like the in-depth members, if you leave, we carry out Mother Earth's wrath. Our big thing is arson.
KKK, here we come.
We torch houses of members.
That's actually really good.
Burn their houses down.
Yeah,
and we sue them.
And we Molotov their cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're arsonists, basically.
We're just jihadis, but with a love of fire instead of bombs.
Yep.
Although if the bombs are fiery, they're a decent substitute, but we prefer pure, unbridled fire.
Yes.
It's like that. I mean, it's like burning your bosom, burning your car.
Nice. Yeah. So
I like that
arson would be a big thing. Or similarly, you deserve to be dealt with by Mother Earth. We take you to a river and we drown you.
Yes, sufficiently violent.
So natural forms of execution.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sufficiently violent.
Oh, I really
like that. I really like that because we need a violent streak, or else it's not good enough.
Or take them to an empty field, strap golf clubs to them, and we wait for lightning to strike.
You're gonna be out there for so long.
Yeah.
But yes, that can happen.
Or. And you can make...
Imagine people driving by and it doesn't work like that.
You see our cult van heading towards a hurricane. Like, what are they doing? Oh, they're executing a member. A tornado. We're just driving over there like, get ready to launch him!
Bro.
Suck it! Into the tornado.
That's amazing. That is beautiful.
If somebody's like, they blaspheme or they commit heresy or whatever, like, we kidnap them.
Yep.
And we say, choose your form of natural deliverance to be judged by Mother Earth.
Because we're benevolent and we don't actually harm people.
Yeah, it's Mother Earth's job.
Yes.
So we just bring them to her.
Have to drop
That's perfect. When people accuse our cult of killing people, it's like, we don't kill people, Mother Earth judges them, so we don't kill anybody.
It would
Brilliant.
drop you from an airplane into the eye of a hurricane. It's your fault for dying because you ain't your Mother Earth.
If that's the way it'd go out, I would not be. Yeah.
Is she a witch? Well, does she float?
Can they fly?
Oh, man, that's so funny. That's so funny.
We are. Oh, and we're pacifist because we don't want to harm nature. We just also love natural death.
Yes,
Yeah.
love natural disasters.
Well, yeah, we're pacifists because we don't actually kill them. It's Mother Nature who does the work for us.
Actually, that's a great psychology.
So
That can actually be a good worm into the member's mind so that they don't feel guilty for doing what they do.
Yeah,
and it can
it's not
justify
you.
this.
Mother Earth is upset with them, and she's judging them.
Yeah.
You're just bringing them to the judgment seat.
Yeah,
Like you bring somebody to court.
Exactly.
Ooh, that's a good selling.
Oh, that's a good
I like
theology.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Like,
good philosophy.
on a much smaller scale, we take people to court when we,
Yep.
we have disputes. You take them to Mother Earth, and if they die, they die.
yeah. The hurricane
And
takes them.
if they live, they have an opportunity to be reconciled, and if not, we do it again.
Actually, yeah. They can totally be reconciled because we're forgiving.
Yes.
We love people.
Yeah.
Like Mother Earth.
Like the tree that dies and needs water.
Mm-hmm.
So the member needs a hurricane.
If a tree is dead and you water it, does it come back?
When a tree withers, it needs water.
There we go. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I actually
like
think
this
that's
quote.
excellent.
Yeah.
Do we have enough beliefs?
I think we need like practices now.
Yeah.
I don't think we have. We need.
No.
So besides venerating the women on a random holiday,
Yeah.
we need like
A random holiday, you can have it.
we need like our religious activities.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be a religion.
Yeah, like the
right?
mosque nearby that's trying to enshrine Muslim holidays that have ritualistic stoning and Allahu Akbar cries. We need just weird out-of-pocket holidays like that. What do you do on this holiday? Oh, ritualistic stoning.
We need something that's like so. Ooh,
We dig into.
you must. We need to. So for our young members, we need to have like arranged marriages.
Yep. Actually, I'm not completely against arranged marriages. I like this idea.
But like, I mean, like forced. Like you don't even know this person.
Oh, I'm against that version.
Yeah.
That sounds.
So like,
yeah, let's do it.
so like, kind of like the Mormons, but like theirs is more implied. Like,
And it has
get
to be
married.
young because otherwise they're gonna leave before this happens,
Yes.
right? So it's young, so you trap them in your
Okay.
cult.
Yes.
They're committed now.
Okay.
That's
So
smart. I like it.
And so we need something like
And you offer in-house therapy too. So if the marriage
Yeah.
goes south, then you are ready to step right in there to be the fix.
Yes,
So they don't go
yes.
outside.
yes.
Never
You provide
outside.
that.
How
That's it.
about-
Everything's in-house. Yep, completely. I like it.
In order to mark them as someone a part of the cult, kind of like the same way of like on the idea of like circumcision or baptism, is the idea of something to do with the earth, like putting them in a mud pit or temporarily burying their body and then unburying them to symbolize them being born from the womb of Mother Earth.
I really think so that I like the idea. I think the specific example you posited is just it is too obviously a ripoff.
That's true.
But I like the idea.
Yeah,
I like
What
the
if
idea.
something
of
along the
original
line? What if
Mother
something along the lines of you have to have a garden?
Yeah, actually
and
that's good.
You have to water it X amount of. That's a little too Islamic.
You got specific plants that
Yeah, specific plants.
Yeah.
specific plants that
Yeah.
you, and
What's
a specific
the-
number.
What's the biggest tree?
I think is it redwood?
Well, it's
that's
the
too
one you
hard to
can't
get.
grow in a garden. You could make it a willow tree because it's old and grows old and is wise, and it takes roots under everything.
That's actually pretty good, and that can be your emblem.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. What if during each month of the year you have to grow a certain like
Oh yeah.
Oh, that would be
Yeah, like the
genius,
zodiac sort of thing.
Yes.
Yep. That's smart.
and you
Just 1 month if you're in China, you have to grow a dragon.
and whatever you're growing, you have a different prayer for that entire month.
That's actually amazing. I like it. I really like it.
Yeah.
It's around the aspect of the divine that this tree embodies.
This is the fruits of your labor.
This is actually beautiful. Why
And then-
hasn't someone else made this before?
I don't know, but you know
This is so sad.
something that I think is I think we should have. I think mass marriages is something that would go good with this cult.
Oh, totally,
And it's
yeah,
only
yeah.
in the Moodies. Nobody cares about the Moodies.
Yeah.
So I think we should have mass marriages. But
Yep.
I think also I think something that I want to take from Islam is one of their requirements is you have to go to Mecca once in your life.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. We
So
need a
something
center.
like that. We need like a focal point.
There needs to be. Do you guys know any deep caves?
Did you say, do I believe in deep caves? Yes.
No. Do you have any? Do you know about any deep
No, it's
caves?
your opinion. I'm like-
That's smart. It's what I think.
I think.
Yeah, so deep caves, you could possibly toss people in and pull them back out.
No, that can be a way of death, you know? Yeah, I think our loci needs to be, like, where nobody else is. Like,
Sorry, I was gonna say, we
Australia.
have to do, okay, one of the things that we should do, it's just like a random thing that we do, is you have to be buried upon the point of death. So if you can't find
Should
the
be
body,
one with Earth.
if you can't find actually, no, that's fine. If you get cremated,
Hell.
you're gone.
Yeah, and we don't have hell, because that's mean.
Yeah,
It's just
you're gone.
Yeah, you're gone.
So you have to be buried without a casket, because the roots have to consume you.
That's really good. That's really
yeah.
good. So that when Mother Earth reawakens, you have been you go up the astral plane, you've reached enlightenment, whatever version you want, because they are all the same thing.
Well,
you are now God.
What if
you
we
are one with Mother Earth.
Bury them without a casket underneath a tree, so when Mother Earth comes back, they will be taken back from the tree.
If you make it too specific with the tree, right, then you're already going to exclude potential growth in
That's
desert
true,
regions.
and in different regions.
So this is
worldwide.
which is why I think our types of trees that we require in each month, you can have multiple options.
Yeah.
But they're all a certain type of tree. So, for instance, an evergreen tree can be either lots of different pine trees, lots of different types, right? So it's all a different type of tree. It's not a specific tree, because what if your area can't sustain a willow?
Right.
You need a type of tree each season.
Yeah.
And so I don't
With
want
like nitpicky things about the root size or something like that. Some specific, so that
I don't think we need nitpicky. I
it's
think
just a tree.
Yeah, I don't, because again, you don't want to cut
If
off
you get too
potential growth.
specific, it becomes too much of a hassle, and people won't do it.
Man, I'm starting my new denomination.
Exactly. No.
I'm starting a new denomination and specify.
we get specific root sizes.
Yeah.
And then so where should we go once a year, or like once in your lifetime? Like you have to do something. You have to contribute some crazy thing to nature.
Grand Canyon.
Patagonia is beautiful. No cult is in the area. What's
in Patagonia?
It's the Andes Mountains in South America, but like near the bottom tip of South America. You've got the Catholic Church in the middle of South America, in like Mexico sort of region. Then we have Mormons up here in America. We've got more Catholics in Europe. We have Muslims in the Middle East. We've got Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism in Asia. We have like weird animalism in Africa, but nobody lives in Patagonia. It's basically just empty. I thought of the outback earlier in Australia, but it's too deserty. And so we want something that's lush and alive, since we're one with Earth. And so I think Patagonia is a good region.
So what if...
Plus there were giants there one time.
So what if...
No explanation for that, but there were giants there one time.
What if you have to... What if
ancient
there's we pick a mountain you have to hike to the top to. And when you hike to the top of it, you sing a certain song or prayer or whatever, and then you give a piece of yourself to the ground.
That's actually perfect, because we needed something like actually serious to demonically seal the deal with people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so
absolutely.
it can be like a large amount of your hair, so it could be like a thing like women will typically, it's like, it's normal.
They shave their head.
Up until age whatever, you grow your hair out, and then you cut half of it off and give it to Earth. And then that's like a show to people that you've reached womanhood. Yeah. You are now, dedicated or whatever to
I like that.
This also sounds,
and then the men,
yes, exactly.
And then men, because it's like hippie stuff.
Yeah.
Men and women both from young ages grow out their hair.
Yep.
And it's only after a certain age men are allowed to keep their hair short, and women can grow it long again because you cut it and give it to Mother Earth.
I like that.
I do think we need a lasting signifier to make them distinct from other people, just visually. And so I think women should then keep their hair
henna tattoos
like this short, like neck length.
Okay.
They can't grow it long. And then men. Again, because we're doing this weird thing where we're kind of inversing gender without saying we are.
So they have long hair?
Yeah.
Interesting. But long hair is a sign of beauty.
You might.
So we could do the same thing, except men have to just basically be bald.
Yeah.
Because women give their hair to have great hair, and men give their hair as a sign of submission.
That's actually a great idea. It's a reverse of head covering.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Okay. And when I use positive adjectives, it's not always actually fully sincere.
No, this is very much heresy.
No,
beautiful in the bad sense.
Yeah, like this is just the way this fits together is perfect.
Yeah. This is really cool.
Yeah. And so, a mountain in Patagonia.
Yeah.
Beautiful area. It needs to be somewhat easy to get to, but Patagonia is generally pretty empty, and so we can work with that. I don't think Chile, because Chile is a slice of that. is generally a hard country to immigrate to. So that's out of the
picture.
Because
no one wants to go there.
What?
But because no one wants to go there. But,
That's why it's the primary location.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
well, it's fun fact. Actually, this is a bit of a non sequitur, but it's very short. It's actually that the big problem with deforestation in Peru. A thing that causes a big problem that actually caused that is actually the Amish, because they're moving to Peru. Yep, the Mennonites and the Amish moved to Peru and cut down trees in order to start their new communities.
But they're finally starting to vote. They need to come back up here and vote for Trump.
I agree,
again.
and they're deforesting the Peruvian jungle to build their Amish communities.
Oh, I don't mind that. I just want them to vote for my candidate.
Well, if we're starting this cult, we should care.
But I don't.
They should be
care. So random. I was just thinking about this. In Peru, on that mountain, we should because you know how like certain countries just like let a certain religion just do whatever they want.
Yeah.
On the mountain that we pick, we should the highest authority of our religion should buy property.
Yep.
And we have a statue of Mother Earth.
Yep.
And it's at that location that you give
That's
your hair
beautiful.
or whatever.
Black. It's like the Kaaba, the Black Stone.
Yep.
It's like Salt Lake City for Mormons.
Yep.
It's like the Watchtower for Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, you need a central.
And there can be this whole idea of like this is actually like.
Yeah.
This is like actually like Mother Earth.
And that
like,
keeps us centralized too.
Whatever. Yeah.
Even if our leadership goes astray, it keeps us centralized around a particular set of doctrines. Because Judaism has that problem. Is they have tons of different rabbis. They kind of slightly different beliefs depending on which group. They have no central. They've got Jerusalem, and once we get the third temple, then I think they'll become much more centralized in belief. But they don't have a third temple yet. We have the Temple Institute, which is ready to they've made all the utensils. They've made a golden menorah. Everything. We've got the red heifers. Finally, it'll happen. But we don't have it yet. And so Judaism is this weird scattershot thing of basic Gnosticism mixed with the occult and Satanism and just bad stuff, but they're not unified. And so I think by having this unified thing that all these other cults have, it'll work. And I think it's one of the reasons the Antichrist will help get the third temple up and going.
And like the members can disagree on like at what age should your children go do this trek, or like how long can the women's hair get, or like can men grow their hair out to their ears, things like that.
Yeah.
Like, there can be all this minor disagreements, but it's centralized upon the like core doctrines.
Yep, that's excellent. I like that. And our core doctrines are, I think, I don't think we need to exactly specify our core doctrines rigidly, but we've got a good sense of, you have to respect the earth, you got to fight for the earth, you have the Hajj, or whatever you want to call it, the pilgrimage, you have the weird sex stuff, you have these general core doctrines, and then the basis underlying of like Gnosticism.
Make it look like hard set morals, but make it so vague that you can say that everything is encompassing it, basically. So
every alien revelation ever.
So a key with that, actually, I was actually going to mention this, is it's very helpful in our case to have not a super in-depth core text.
Yeah.
So we can have like something that the Zoroastrians have that frustrates me is they pretty much have or I guess even the KKK.
The Baha'i do it well.
Like the book is just on their practice, like their ritual. It's not on like a lot of the doctrine.
That's good.
And so a lot of the doctrine and rules can be like passed down orally.
Yeah.
But as far as how the ritual works and things like that, and some rules is in a completely vegan book, so it's very easy to get destroyed.
Well, and this is also really good because it allows our leaders flexibility to change things over time.
Yes.
Yep. And they can even say that they can even admit to being wrong earlier, which is the beauty of it.
Yep.
Because
they're flexible.
Because they can say, we're all trying to awake Mother Earth. We recognize that our strategy earlier wasn't optimal. We're now in a subservience to Mother Earth, we are now promoting X idea. And do whatever they want.
And the leaders, because they are closer to Mother Earth, receive revelation from her.
Yeah, or at least insight.
It's just Gnosticism, right?
Yeah.
It's like they have secret knowledge that we don't have.
Yeah, how, if Mother Earth is fragmented, how do they get the secret knowledge? Is it because the loci of the remains of Mother Earth is around the statue at the mountain?
I think the key is, so you know how like the Bible defines like elders?
Yeah.
So I think for us it's our big like sanctification or devotion aspect needs to be how natural are you?
That's really good.
It's like, did you build your own house, or do you live in a more secluded area in the woods? Do you how
do you source your energy?
Yes. So like, you know how it's like Catholics
Yeah.
Actually, I don't want to use that example. You know how Muslims are really like one of their pillars is give to charity.
Yeah.
One of our pillars can be environmental work.
Yep, that's actually a great, and then it's subjective measurement.
Super environmental. Like you'll be gifted or blessed based on like how environmentally conscious you are. Like if you use like only paper straws, like you're super up there.
Yeah.
If you if you live in a tent in the woods, like you are
beautiful,
so amazing.
I just realized we're making this cult the exact opposite of Keegan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually.
No carbon footprint.
No. And really, yep. I've got the biggest carbon footprint. It's so big. No one's seen bigger. So great. A wall can even surround it.
So is that like the enlightenment process? Kind of like how the gradually...
My carbon footprint. I need bigger carbon shoes.
They need to be black.
I need the Nike Naturals.
So
it's from China. The more slave labor, the better. Strip mining, I like it. We want it all.
Oh yeah, and our extremists can be like, the way that they go too far is they commit arson, right, which is only reserved for the elders to permit to delegates. They commit arson to like factories. Things like, so they're like
and then we can tell people we're not violent.
You know the crazy people who like sit on the road and like block cars?
Yeah.
So things like that.
We're just off.
But there's a line between you're really devoted for doing that, good for you, like you sacrificed for Mother Earth, and then the crazy people who like blew up a factory.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this is we don't even deal with morality. We're not even saying you have to be good enough for anything. We're just saying that if you live this lifestyle, if you choose to live this lifestyle with us, you're contributing to awakening Mother Earth, which will bring back goodness. We're not even defining goodness. We sort of are by saying natural.
Define it.
But we're not even making any statements on human nature. The great thing about this is we don't necessarily rely on human nature. We can work with whatever is most convenient at hand. We don't have to combat people who say that human nature is evil. We don't have to hold to good. Actually, those are the two, or good. When we don't have to hold to bad, probably bad. We can work with either, because if people aren't converting, we can agree, people are basically evil. We're here to save them. That's why we want Mother Earth to awaken, and that's why we're having problems expanding. And or you can run with people are basically good, and that's why we've survived, and that's why more and more people are joining. But whatever it is, you're obviously never going to reach a point where everyone believes it, right? And so you can work with either, and that also feeds into either way. The women being better, right? Is they're extra good, or you don't even have to say extra good because it's dormant, right? So if a woman does evil things in your cult, you can be like, well, that's unfortunate. The spark must have been dormant in her. She must not have fully come into realization of her spark. And so you can run with any human nature you want and spin it your way. So you don't have to argue with Christians and say people are basically bad, and you don't even have to argue about how can we be just before God, because you don't actually have a God. You have a deity you're trying to awaken, but you've kind of ill-defined it. So you can bypass human nature completely.
So are we just pro nature Freemasons?
Freemasonry is more specific, where it worships specific pagan deities. We don't do that.
Well, with Freemasonism, their selling point is that even if you're religious, you can still join the Freemasons as long as you don't discuss religion. You have to. So everyone
worship some god.
Yes. So everyone
but as you progress through the levels,
it leads to Satanism.
Yes, it's Satanism. Eventually, it's just if you're low level, it's not specified, but it does lead to Satanism. And again, we don't get that specific. I guess you could say we're similar in our like lower level stages, but we don't. In our upper level, we don't say we're just Satanist.
Well, what's fancy is that we are accessible to every people because everybody lives on Earth and everybody, to an extent, cares about the environment.
Exactly.
But you care about where you live. You care about how you live to a certain extent.
Yeah, and you can even say that it's not that we're subservient to Earth. It's that we're the saviors of Earth. So we are to steward well. But you can also play with the environmentalists that want to say Earth is like up here, because it really is up here.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
No, liberals will love us. The liberals will love us because we're going to basically be saying that there is no actual real differences between men and women or between the races. I mean, there is a difference between men and women because Mother Earth. But there's no real differences between any of us. Because we're all part of one earth.
Well, and we would be fairly, I would think. Actually, I'm curious. We might be strict on the transgender LGBTQ thing because it's less people contributing.
Totally.
Because it limits humanity's growth, and we need humanity's growth to bring more people to help Mother Earth.
And we want to be natural.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chopping off genitals is not supernatural.
Right.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
And it's natural to produce children. It's not natural to not.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because because on an evolutionary basis,
which would be a good company. These religions all don't. Actually, I don't know about Judaism.
Yeah.
It depends.
But are not friendly.
Actual strict Judaism is. I don't believe they abhor transgenderism.
So
in fact,
when we come to
the voting block, or the voting booth, all these cults are going to vote conservative. Yeah. On some level.
We would vote Democrat, though, because we'd be very environmentalist. Which, depending on the Republican, would speak out for that.
And socialism, we need to share with the people. Make sure to share with everyone. Why give it to one congregation, guys?
I think our...
Well, we don't want to just completely buy into wokeness, because then again, we want as broad appeal as possible.
So I think we would like the more traditional Democrat who truly cares about the environment. So because, not that Republicans don't, because and now I'm going to make a genuine political statement.
Yeah.
Republicans really try to help people understand their value, and I think the Democrats try to put the value anywhere else.
Yep, completely.
So I think our members would be very likely to lean Democrat.
I say that because the whole with loose scriptures, we can fully deep dive into the progressivism where it's we can eventually just keep rewriting stuff because we don't have one set scripture except for the higher ups. And so we don't really have a strict scripture, so we can just keep going with the progressivism, which is progressivism basically says it's an action.
Yeah.
So it never really ends. Thus, whenever we really end.
Well, that's the fascism version of progressive, but it's
so classical Democrat.
Yeah.
Was very environmentally aware and also didn't like gays.
Same as kind of classical liberal.
Yeah.
Same. They're basically the same thing. But I don't think we need to commit to being uber liberal. No. We can still be super environmentalist and have conservative moral values. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the populace kind of falls into that, where they actually are pretty liberal, but they just have this disgust factor towards the LGBTQ and the cancel culture and all that, so they voted conservative, but they're not actually conservatives. Mm-hmm. Almost any conservative is not an actual conservative. Again, to be an actual conservative, an actual right-winger, one of the biggest differences is nature-nurture. The more you give in to nurture, you're just a product of your environment. You can be who you want to be. Blah blah blah. You're on the left. The right embraces
nature.
That there are certain definable characteristics, genetics, blah blah blah. Which is why it is a right-wing value to have some version of ethnicity defines who you are. Blah blah blah. Your culture defines who you are. Your heritage defines who you are. All of that. Whether you agree with it or not, that's going to be right wing, and we have some of that, but we also have this nurture thing of wanting to bring back Mother Earth, and so we can work well with both groups. You're not conservative unless you reject the Enlightenment, so we can't really have full right wing conservatives. Mm-hmm. But that's what us here and 3 other people in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Does our cult appear left wing, but is actually right wing because we're more set in nature versus nurture?
It's going to depend on the person you meet.
Yeah, and it's not we don't take strong political stances.
Because again, you can have a member that's super hippy dippy, or you can have a member that's independent, conservative, cabin in the woods. Unplugged from the matrix.
Well, and I think a big thing too is it's there's this big push of keep your religion out of my fill in the blank, and so it's imagine a reporter going up to an elder of whatever the religion, which we should probably think of a name, but going up to the elder, what is your guys' political views? Is I could care less what your political views are. What are you doing for the environment?
Exactly.
Right. So you stay out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Keep your religion out of my insert whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. We should name it. What should we name it?
Mother-Arianism?
Mother-Arianism.
Mother-Arianism.
So uncreative, but it's funny. I like it.
I know it's not creative.
Tree worship.
The tree worshippers. Tree worshiparianism.
Oak lover.
Oak lover.
So think about how these were named.
Grassism.
Grassism.
Oh.
Dustafarian.
I gotta channel the Zen. Okay.
It needs to be a super loose, like, you know how when people get on drugs and they have just they distill words down to basically mean nothing.
And that's how we can verify what we say is true. We can promote ayahuasca use so that people run into the snake gods and the machine elves that are just demons. Again, I'm not going to explain that we just all know that's implicitly true.
It's true. Come on, guys.
They will communicate.
And mushrooms are natural.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mushrooms are
and
natural.
it meshes well. It's super back to nature. Conservatives like the guy that runs there's conservatives and liberals both do ayahuasca.
So the elders regularly take ayahuasca.
Yeah,
and it's discouraged.
And that's how they communicate.
It's discouraged for younger members too because they can be overwhelmed by the revelation.
Boom.
Rastafarians,
That's good.
baby.
And it confirms we're right because we know that the demons are going to encourage us.
Question: is that not very close to Rastafarianism?
Maybe.
Because Rastafarians.
If I knew more about that,
It
I
could
would
be
say.
called awakeism.
I like it. I like the awake part.
It could be better.
But yeah.
But yeah, because Rastafarians ritually take marijuana so that they can gain spiritual enlightenment.
And I do like Awaken. I like that because our big event, our pivotal climax event is the Awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that.
The Awakeners.
Awakeners?
Yeah, because there's like, you got Quakers, you got the Shakers, you have the Ers, right? So you can be Awakeners.
Yeah.
But that's kind of long. I don't know if I like that.
Well, Awakeners, I mean, I don't think it's like
Waker?
too far. Waker?
Wakens.
Wakens.
I like that.
Wakens. I love that.
It's like Wiccan.
Yeah.
But slightly different.
Yeah, completely. Wakens. And the full word is awaken.
Yep, or awakenism.
Yeah.
Wakens, though. I
Wakens.
like that.
That's good. That's good.
That's cool. That's
Yep,
cool. Right
Wakens.
on. Cool.
There we go.
What's up, my Waker?
It's complete.
Wake up.
It's complete. Now we just need to make an ad for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm assuming
sex,
that
what drugs?
because
Woo!
we came up with it, we get to be at the top.
Yes.
Completely.
We're at the pillars.
Completely. You have to take
That's funny you
the
started
ayahuasca
about
first.
men.
We need to find Holly and we're good.
Yeah.
Yes.
We need to say that it was founded, we were inspired by Mother Earth or some great female person, so that they're more trustworthy.
And so like our version of the Pope of like our our Supreme Current Leader. So like the top woman acts like the Queen of England, where she doesn't do anything. She's just there for like points.
Yes,
Yes.
completely.
So like the technical highest member is always a man.
Because now it's meta.
The elders are always a man.
Oh, I love it.
But the top lady can be called the first woman.
That's
the first woman.
That's good.
Because she represents the physical embodiment of Mother Earth.
Oh, I love
The only
it.
pitfall I think we have is oneism versus twoism. Is we are oneism right now, which is self-defeating.
How do you mean?
We don't have much distinction between creator and creation. And
so it can be so the Pope is like another Christ, though he is very clearly not Jesus Christ. So it can be something like that where it's like she just represents. Like she is the top representative. So like she can like
you're right. I don't. So my problem is with oneism, right? It's this idea that we don't have creature creation distinction, and so it's because we all live off the earth, and women have a spark of the divine in them. They're part of this deity. Mm-hmm. Where do we come from? We need some distinction because otherwise it collapses in on itself, right? How do you? And that's the core problem with Gnosticism. How do you know it's true? Well, because if you are the creator, you're the one verifying your own ideas. You need an extra source for truth, a way to escape the circle. And now the same thing with atheists is they say, I am God, I get to find truth, and you're like, where's the source for it? You need an outside objective source. So we need an outside objective source for truth somewhere.
Hear me out.
Well, it would be Mother Earth through the revelation of the mushrooms.
So it's that Mother Earth has always existed, but our conscious, our gnosis has always existed, and Mother Earth just simply gave us form, and now we're getting back.
So she gave birth to the first people.
That's it.
From the dirt.
Oh, because she's the author of the rescue operation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And that's why men get to be in charge, because we're creations of her. Therefore, women are still higher, because they're part of the creator. Mm-hmm. But we're superior because we've got a reference point. That's not just us, right? We're not stuck in circular logic. Women believe this just because they're women. We believe it because we got it from the Creator.
Yes.
Women might not have come into full realization of their spark, but we communicate with the spark, and so we still create a creation distinction. I like it. It's a weird melding.
Yeah.
I think we've escaped the oneism problem.
Sweet.
There we go. Okay. This
good.
is actually surprisingly scarily good.
Are you one of them or
This is
twoism?
excellent.
Hear me out. Why not both?
It's Eastern logic.
It is.
Both
That's
and.
It's an Eastern
amazing.
philosophy. Yeah.
We are set to rule the world.
Perfect.
Perfect.
That's what we want.
All we need are eco-terrorists. That's you guys. No.
Now to see if the tornado swallows the victims.
Yeah.
If you happen to drop someone in a tornado, it's their fault when they die.
Law calls that an act of God.
Yeah.
Yep. We still have a you're in or you're out.
We have enough to function in or out, but it's not set enough where like we can be wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's and I think it's mostly impervious to the average attack by any other religion.
We have just enough views to exist.
We have a few, yeah. We've got a few more than that. We've got a few more than the minimum, but not many. We're not too restrictive. Just don't make us fly you into a hurricane.
Yes.
Yeah.
or slingshot you into a tornado.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or put you in a metal lightning suit.
That's it. That's better than the golf club.
Yes.
This metal box.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we've got a pretty well-rounded fake faith here.
Yeah.
That's
Wakens.
Good. Yep.
Wakens.
Wakens. It's beautiful. Beautiful. The most beautiful thing ever. It's gonna be the biggest. You won't even get tired of winning. It's gonna do so much winning against other religions.
Winding is gonna do so much winding.
Even without stealing from our sources, we have genuinely made a more cohesive cult than Joseph Smith.
And the point that a person can do this just sitting down, none of this was scripted beforehand. Mm-hmm. The fact that we can do this just sitting down from reading only a thimbleful of the ocean of cults that are out there is a testament, I think, to how people fall for the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And all of them have this weird thing about where they get involved with the Bible because Satan seeks to corrupt that which is true. And so the cult that we just envisioned still corrupts that which is true. But we completely avoid Scripture. Granted, some more Eastern mythologies can avoid Scripture to some extent, which is, Hinduism. That does it, right? That makes sense. But they still tie themselves to really specific doctrine like reincarnation, these things that specifically move you away from the Bible. We don't even move ourselves away from the Bible that much with this cult that we came up with, which is, I think, demonstrates the nature of these cults. They're not intended to give you truth or really to keep members. They're intended to lead you away from the truth, the Bible specifically.
And that should be really, if there's any takeaway from this podcast at all, it's that there are millions of cults, and a lot of them have commonalities. And it's so much that we can even sit down and, create our own cult off script. But there's only one way to Christ. The Bible says that wide is the way the gate that leads to destruction, and narrow is the way that leads to life. Mm-hmm. And so the Bible is very clear. The Bible, we talk about all these cults having some loose views. The Bible is clear on how you must be saved, which is that you must confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe in your heart that God did raise him from the grave, repent from your sins. You will be willing. He's willing and just to forgive you, and that's the essential part. There's millions of ways to go without Christ, but Christ gives us one way to Him.
Mm-hmm. And the easy way to demolish the cult that we just created, logically, is again to go to the how can you trust what are basically the machine elves on ayahuasca. Mm-hmm. And that's the same way you defeat Wicca and like these Eastern religions. How do you trust these beings? Oh, because they told you to. The unique thing about the Bible is it's composed of several books, right? And you can compare them to each other for authenticity. The resurrection is the proof that Jesus is God. You can look to conclusive evidence that the resurrection did happen to verify that. We have actual concrete evidence that's verifiable, and we're not just one single book. Like Mormonism, one single book, self-referential. Quran, one single book, self-referential. These things are one single book. I think Rabbinic Judaism is better in that sense, and that's not one single book, which is good, but the reason it's not one single book is it pulls originally from the Old Testament, or what they would call the Tanakh. And so, we we don't have to be self-referential in our truth claims. We have an outside source for truth. We can self-verify our own sources by comparing them to each other, by looking at prophecy. Books that we can verify were written here, talked about very specific things that happened way later, which didn't exist at the time of their writing, such as crucifixion, with like Isaiah 53. So we have, or Psalm, I think it's 22, specifically talks about they'll divide up my clothes, talks about specific things that would happen to Jesus that he couldn't control while on the cross because he was getting crucified. And yet it's predicted way before that. And so we have ways to verify truth. We have an actual definable event that verifies that the author is God, namely that event being the resurrection. And none of it contradicts. We have an outside source for truth. We've got an objective metric and an objective God that objectively showed us his divinity and power through an objective event. Therefore, it is infinitely more solid than any of these cults, including the one we just ad hoc created just now.
There are infinite amount of ways to go to hell.
Well, and something that...
Another road to hell.
Something that was very present in the discussion of our cult, that is present in Islam, it is present in Mormonism, JW, Seventh-day Adventists, maybe, sort of, and then modern-day Rabbinical Judaism, is the idea that a new cult is typically centered around the desires and passions of the present-day man.
Exactly.
So, Americans, at the time, modern-day Americans, we're the greatest, whatever you want to say.
We are the true Israel.
Yeah, true Israel.
Arabs wanting to be, the true descendants of God,
Sexy
Ishmael
time.
and whatever it is.
Yep.
Ishmaelites, yeah.
So Ishmaelites. It's what does man want and how can he go beyond himself in order to achieve it?
Yep.
Right? With the Bible, with Christ, we have God's way, which in a lot of ways is contrary to our way, but not in the sense of Buddhism where your whole goal is like, reality is just suffering, right? We know that's not true just through living day-to-day life. We can do good things. We can do bad things, but those only hold meaning with the true God describing how they operate. And so we need to align ourselves with God and what he tells us to do, not what we get through magic natural mushrooms that have different effects on different people, and then because we don't have anything to go to, it's make it up on the fly.
Yeah.
God, something that each of these religions did is they gave themselves a lot of boundaries that break them apart. What was so fascinating about Christ is he gave himself such a strict boundary that even Paul says, if Christ did not rise from the dead, then we are above everybody else to be most pitied. And so God was bold enough to give himself such a strict and specific way to be disproven, and it will never be disproven. So the more vague a cult is, the more in fear it is to be so easily proven wrong.
And every single cult does this sort of thing where they want to be Arabs are the best, we're the chosen Ishmaelites, we're the new Israel, we're the new Israel, we're the new Israel. We're still special.
We're still special.
We're old Israel. We are old Israel.
Well, we're still special, but at the expense of saying Gentiles are animal spirits, basically.
You are the worst. No.
Yeah.
What's your animal spirit? Probably a German.
No. They go. You're all wrong. And you all are the worst.
Yep. And so I want to make the clarification again. It'll depend, because they're decentralized, it'll depend on which rabbi you follow, but among most conservative...
Schneerson above all, bro.
Among most stringent Talmudic or Rabbinical Judaism, means the same thing basically, then it will be Gentile, it'll be this greater distinction where they deny even the possibility of Gentiles being grafted in because they're not even of like creation. And so we have that sort of element in all of these, and even in some Christian theology where it says we get to be the new Israel too, guys. Yeah, so Rebbe Schneerson is the former leader of Chabad who claims, who he didn't directly claim to be the Messiah, but he led people on for it, and a large faction of the cult now believes he is the Messiah and is waiting for him to rise again and lead them to Jerusalem to rebuild the third temple and make a one world government, blah, blah, blah. He'll do the Antichrist stuff is what they're looking for. And so, anyway, all that to say is every false belief, wants to be the we're super special guys people. When I think we ought to point to God as being the supreme one. They all pay lip service to that. Islam talks about how high and holy God is, but he does a whole lot of saying and no showing, and Jesus shows us. They all acknowledge some sort of divine being. Even Catholics with their divine feminine and Mary and all that, they all have a divine being, but Catholics tradition and Mary, that's our standard basically. But you can see by the practice it's lip service. We ought to conform our every thought to what God says, because he is the one in charge, and we're not great, we're not special. It is rather that he is great and he finds value in us.
Amen.
Amen.
I don't think I have much more to say other than we made fun of cults. We then created our own cult because we can obviously, it doesn't take much to do better than most of these cults. And then we destroyed our cult and we talked about why you should be a Christian.
Yeah.
I think the reason for bringing this up is because a lot of these people speak the same. A lot of these people claim similar things, but there is such a stark. I think it's the word. Is stark the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Stark. Okay, it's such a stark difference between something clearly made by man, influenced by what God made, versus the Bible, which Keegan greatly outlined earlier. You see it, it's clearly different. You read through the whole Bible and you walk away spiritually full, and you realize Christ is the only way. And when you have Christ and you look at all of these, you see how empty they are.
Yep. And so it is amazing, and I would encourage you to read cult literature so that you can speak their language and accurately communicate the gospel to them, because they all, for instance, Jehovah's Witnesses will use the same terminology, and Mormons do the same thing. They'll say Jesus is the Son of God. They mean something completely different. So at least know their terminology so you can witness to them. That's good. But you don't need to. What you need to know is what makes the gospel distinct. And you should know a basic framework of what every cult says. And that's, I think, basically what we've provided in a nutshell in this, is every cult is essentially the same thing. They all tell you that you're special, that you can achieve essentially paradise without the cross. And so they all have some sort of work salvation in some sense. Even the one we made, you have to do certain things to end up awakening Mother Earth. And so you all have work salvation in some sense. Most of them will claim people are basically good. Not all of them, but most of them do. They make distinct esoteric claims that you can pretty much spot. Almost always their founder, the God that they worship, has lied. Allah says he is the best of deceivers. Mormons don't, they discourage their members from reading Doctrines and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price. Jehovah's Witnesses, their new light contradicts their old light. Adventism has completely changed from the original teachings and influences of Ellen G. White and her husband. Rabbinical Judaism directly contradicts Leviticus. Again, that's why the rabbis told me that Leviticus is entirely meaningless. You have to trust the hidden letter meanings that we're telling you. Completely esoteric. Again, they contradict past. Their gods and their authorities have lied, and so they have a bad track record that shows that they're not the source of truth. Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So they all self-contradict each other. Their sources do, but more importantly, their God does, which demonstrates that it is not divine in nature. It is satanic in nature, whether originally or taken advantage of by Satan after it's created or as it's being created. It is satanic in nature and works salvation. If you know those principles, you can pretty much deal with any cult. A person walked up to me a little while ago and said they worship Nemesis. I had no idea who Nemesis is. I asked them a couple questions, and then I asked, has Nemesis ever lied before? Or even has Nemesis ever deceived people before? They said yes. Same with Hinduism. None of these books are about Hinduism because I don't know Hinduism. I've not researched it. That's to my chagrin. I want to. I will. Someday it'll happen, but I haven't yet. However, if you ask a Hindu, has Vishnu ever deceived people before? They will say yes, because Vishnu has shapeshifted. They will say, but the deception's in our own good. Okay, who told you that? Oh, Vishnu did? We got a problem. And so that's the point. They all lie. They all, right? Hinduism had this reincarnation thing. The definition of insanity includes trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. How's that working for you with reincarnation, right? You are working your way to enlightenment and it's not working. You haven't done it yet. You're still here. So obviously it's failed a lot of times. Same with actually rabbinical Judaism is they actually believe in reincarnation as well. And I've used that successfully with their members before in New York City. How is that working for you? The definition of insanity, right? That sort of the Eastern method of working for it. Jehovah's Witnesses very clearly work for it. In good standing of the organization, you have to do X number of service hours, blah, blah, blah. Mormons obviously do it similarly. You have to be a missionary. You have to do X number of good works. Again, good standing in the church, blah, blah, blah. Mormons have to do it with literally your scales in the balance on the day of judgment of good deeds and bad deeds. They all do it. And so they all have these same common denominators that you can just ask them. Has your God lied to you before? Has your God deceived before? And then about how salvation or alignment is achieved. How is that working for you? And you can press the law into them. How is that working for you? Are you basically good? Have you lied? Go through the 10 Commandments, Ray Comfort style. Have you lied? Have you stolen? Have you committed adultery? Have you lusted? Have you coveted items or people that do not belong to you? And that sort of thing, right? Go through the 10 Commandments, convict them of sin, righteousness, and judgment. Bring them to the foot of the cross, because that's what makes the Bible unique, is the Gospels. Is the gospel message, Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. That's what sets it apart, ultimately. Amen. It is good to know the differences. Totally read them. You don't have to, though. That's the vague method's going to work.
Yeah. As long as you have a strong... these books are like supplements. They supplement your actual witness to people, but truly at the core, a solid faith and a solid knowledge of the Bible will get you a lot further than any book.
Yeah, but these are totally fun. They're like
this
one's
more fun
after meal dessert.
Yeah.
Yes.
This one's a lot more fun.
Bad for you. If you only have dessert, it will kill you.
They're junk food,
but super entertaining and actually useful in being able to speak the language of the people you're meeting with, so you can
fiction is fun because we live in reality.
Yes.
And so when you know the scriptures and you know the truth, reading things like this is fun because it's a distortion of reality. So you read it and you find it to be very humorous. Unless it's the Quran, in which case it's
so yeah.
You might
the New World Translation. There's no fun in the New World Translation because it's like it's like somebody trying to. That's true. The magazines are fun, but reading the New World Translation is like if you were to watch a documentary that is just telling you wrong things.
Yeah.
But it's mostly true. It's just like it's like a nature documentary, and it's like it's showing you footage of animals, and then randomly, like every few seconds, a random like bloodthirsty penguin with a knife just flashes onto the scene for 30 seconds.
Or it's like they're showing you a horse, and like they're saying things about the horse. You're like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And the horse lives 120 years. No.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's why we make fun of it, because evil deserves to be made fun of. Idols need to be blasphemed. It glorifies God to do that. And it actually legitimately points people to the truth. Humor has a way of doing that. C.S. Lewis has a quote that goes something along the lines of, children do not need to be told that dragons exist. They know dragons exist. Children need to be told stories of how to defeat the dragon. Or he actually says evil, I think. Children do not need to be told evil exists. They know evil exists. They need to be told how to defeat evil, how to become that dragon slayer. And that's what the Bible does. It's also reading cult material colors in those lines and gives you more precision weapons to defeat it. You can still defeat it with a blunt sword. You can walk up to the dragon and just repeatedly stab it in the face. That will work. But it is even nicer to build your custom-built ballista and just fire at will from 50 yards away.
Yeah.
And so reading cult material, understanding where they're coming from, how they see the world, and their specific flaws and the language they use to communicate and what their definitions are, allows you to build your ballista and just pierce through the heart of the dragon with a flip of a switch. You are not just having to blunt force stab, 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 stabby, stab, stab. The stabby, stab, stab will work. You can get there. That's why I'm going to read the Hindu material sometime. But I can still stabby, stab, stab the Hindu belief, and it works with Hindus. Mm-hmm. But I could have a greater effect if I had read their material and could speak their language and communicate Christ through that. Mm-hmm. And so that's the purpose of this.
Stop stabbing and start shooting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Be a sniper, not a shotgun pellet owner, right? Shotguns will get
very fun.
Yeah. Shotguns will, just throwing everything out there, it will end up hitting your target. Something will pierce the target. God's word is sharper than two-edged sword, piercing through bone and marrow.
It never goes out in void.
Yep. Exactly.
It never goes out and returns void. That's what I meant to say.
And so it will totally work. Shotgun, something will stick with them because God's word always does. It is nice to know exactly what verses to use, exactly what terminology to use with them, so you can snipe them.
If you're trying to take down a target, you don't hire a random person, you hire a hitman.
Yep. You're never going to learn all the cults, but you can slowly learn the ones that interest you and progress from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And don't follow the one we made. Glorify God.
Yep.
It was for demonstration purposes only.
No
Let's have a
cult.
huge, long screen of text with lots of disclaimers in like blood red. The end.
Caution, we do not actually support the nature sex cult. Please do not join the nature sex cult. Please do
that
not
relies
start
on demons and ayahuasca, by the way.
Cue the people in the comment section that are like, I am now a waker.
Yeah, wakers.
If
wakers.
I get those comments, I'm going to leave very colorful responses about how stupid that cult is.
Now you're gonna get comments.
Yeah, now they're gonna
totally
seek it out.
It's gonna be beautiful. I'm gonna have so much fun. It's gonna be like whack-a-mole, like Hydra.
Yeah.
Well, on that less serious note, do we have any concluding thoughts, or is that it?
I think we should pray.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I can start if you want to finish.
Yeah.
Sure. That sounds great.
Father in heaven, thank you so much for the opportunity to just be here with the knowledge of your word and seek to educate in any way that we can. Father, I appreciate the opportunity to have my brothers in Christ here and just spread truth in the midst of so much falsehood. Lord, there are many different organizations that claim to be of you, that claim to serve you faithfully. But Father, as we've demonstrated, it is very easy to pursue our own passions and to create something that caters to our desires rather than aligning ourselves with your word and your will. Lord, you did something miraculous. You saw our weakness and you came into the flesh in order that you might rescue us from such weakness. You redeemed us through the powerful and perfect atoning sacrifice of your Son on the cross. When he died and rose again, he set us free from being slaves to sin, Lord. You warned us in your word that if anybody, man or angel, preach something contrary to that which you have delivered, that person must be accursed. And so, Father, as we sit here in the presence of many different cult texts, may we acknowledge that that warning was not in vain, that it has happened many different times, all from the same individual, from Satan, either working through individuals or working himself in order that he might lead many astray. Father, may we rely on your word. May we walk in truth and serve you all the days of our life.
And Lord, we pray for those who have been led astray, Lord. There are so many people around the world, many we've talked to today, who have just been led astray by these different cults or by their own beliefs and by their own denial of you, Lord. Make an impact in their life. Let them see you. Let them see that what they're doing is not right. And more than that, not just proving them wrong, but also proving that you are good. We cannot fix ourselves. You said so. It's repeated in so many times in the Bible that we are not good. We can never be perfect. We can never save ourselves, Lord. But because you loved us and you knew that, because of you, we don't have to be perfect. We have to accept you and live for you. So Lord, thank you. Thank you for being enough when we couldn't. And please help those who are still seeking the truth. Help them see you and realize that what these books say about you, with these heretical books, these cults say about you is not true. They all claim to know you, Lord, but it's very clear that they do not. Please help people get out of the cults. We know it's difficult. Their family ties, their friend ties, their investments, Lord, but allow them to realize that you are worth more than every ounce of struggle. You are worth more than everything else in their life. So let them find you and accept Jesus as their Lord. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about these. And thank you for allowing us to be in a country where we're allowed to talk about these. So please bless us as we go about our week. Please bless the people who hear this upon their hearts, that they will realize the importance of distinguishing truth from lies. I want to thank you for my brothers here who are dedicated much of their life to serving you and to spreading your word. And I pray that you keep them safe, but also bring more people to talk to so that we can talk with them. Thank you, Lord.
Dear God, I praise you for, as was already mentioned, the freedom to meet together and discuss your truth freely in our country today. I praise you for the direction you're recently bringing our country, and I pray that we would glorify you through what we did today, that those who are stuck in false beliefs, be it just this vague liberal Gnosticism, be it a specific definable cult, that they would see you, turn to you, recognize the truth of your word, and pay homage to you instead of living for themselves or for Satan, that they would live for you regardless, come what may. We praise you, we worship you, Lord. We seek to honor you with our lips and our very being. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.